Arc 2 Slapping the Black-Hearted Lotus Chapter 1 Zhou Yunsheng stayed by Du Zhulang's side until his death. The day after, he also didn't hesitate to leave the world. In the past, under the villain system's control, he always unrelentingly transmigrated, completing one demanding task after another. No chance to catch his breath. This time he was free to control his own time. He stayed in the Xinghai space for a long time. He hibernated to nourish his soul, until his affection for Du Zhulang gradually faded with the passage of time. When he woke up, he began fiddling with the AI on his wrist. During the time when the AI had not been hacked by him, he learned that along with the tasks gradually becoming more troublesome, his soul power also increased. At the same time, he'd become more closely linked to the system. The system and the house depended on each other to survive, only waiting for some day when the soul power reached the most critical point and the Lord God could absorb it through the system, digesting it and using it as a power source to support the heterodimensional space. The so-called be sent back to the real world after completing the task was just a beautiful lie. They were merely a herd of livestock raised by the Lord God. Once they fattened up, they would be slaughtered. When 007's tentacles penetrated deeper and deeper into his soul, he accidentally found out this secret. He was a hacker, so he wasn't like other people who fanatically obsessed with returning to the real world. To him, there was no difference between a real and virtual. In fact, he contrarily lived more uninhibited in the virtual world. He has always been the king of the virtual world. It wasn't unreasonable to say that choosing him was the Lord God's greatest mistake, like inviting a wolf into the house. After adjusting his mentality, Zhou Yunsheng clicked the AI, then disappeared into the endless sky in a flash. When he woke up again, Zhou Yunsheng was standing in front of the canvas, holding a paint-stained brush, his body carrying a strong smell of poppy oil. He stood still for a moment before he began observing the surrounding environment. This was a rather spacious and empty room, without any furniture, only 4 white walls and an opened window. Outside the window was a lush green garden with luxuriant flowers resembling a brocade. And there was even a blue lake in the distance. The scenery was beautiful and fascinating. Except for Zhou Yunsheng, there was no one else in the room. The AI screen flashed a lot of text. This was detailed data stolen from the Lord God about the original owner and this world. The original owner was named Wei Xiyan, 18 years old, currently studying in the capital's Academy of Fine Arts. When he was 10 years old, his parents died in a traffic accident. He was adopted by close friends of his parents, then moved to F country. The relationship between the couple was very deep. On the day of their silver wedding anniversary, they decided to travel around the world, their due return date uncertain. Worried that Wei Xiyan would be unable to take care of himself, they entrusted him to their son in the faraway sea country, Ningxi Nian. Ningxi Nian was 28 years old this year, but he has already been married twice. The last wife died of bone cancer, leaving him with a dissatisfied 3-year-old son named Ning Wangshu. Due to being busy with the company, he had no time to look after his son, so Ning Xinyan selected the gentle, introverted woman to hastily marry. Although they had no feelings of husband and wife, it was better for life to be stable. Wei Xiyan and Ning Xinyan only met when they were children. Then Ning father and Ning mother threw the huge family business to their son and settled abroad long-term with Wei Xiyan. So the feelings between the two brothers wasn't deep. You could even call them unfamiliar. Wei Xiyan lost his parents at a young age, and his character became somewhat autistic. He could never take the initiative to cater to others, and was even more unlikely to add inconvenience to others. Ning Xinyan was mature and stable. He also wouldn't deliberately make life difficult for an orphan. They lived together mutually, not disturbing the other, living in harmony. But rotten was rotten. Ning Xinyan's new wife, Xia Xingfang, had a pure outer appearance, but she was a vicious black-hearted lotus inside. Before marrying Xinyan, Ning Xinyan. She got together with Ning Xinyan's close friend, Jian Yu. Jian Yu was Ning Xinyan's university classmate. After graduation, he accepted Ning Xinyan's invitation to be his personal assistant. Most personal assistants were trusted by the boss. This was a position where you heavily relied upon and needed to be self-disciplined. When Qian Yu's abilities reached Ning Xinyan's expectations, he would naturally arrange a more suitable position for him. But Qian Yu obviously couldn't wait. Due to being born in poverty, he had strong hostility towards the rich and a more morbid sense of self-confidence. In his view, being ordered about like a nanny was an insult from Ning Xinyan. He started viewing Ning Xinyan as the enemy. On one side, he embezzled company property and sold company secrets. On the other side, he seduced Xia Xinfang to help with his plan to stab Ning Xinyan in the back. But Ning Xinyan was the male protagonist in this world. He wasn't so easy to deal with. The two were almost successful when the female protagonist appeared. She not only won Ning Xinyan's love, she also exposed their schemes. In the series of dangerous and romantic confrontation, Wei Xiyan was merely a negligible cannon fodder. One day he went out to buy paint and accidentally ran into Xiao Xinfang and Qian Yu coming out of a hotel after a clandestine love affair. The two feared that he would tell this matter to Ning Xinyan and make him suspicious, so they set up a poisonous plot to expel him from the Ning family house. Zhou Xinfang bribed the Ning family's nanny, Wang Ma, to let her abuse Ning Wangshu. Then she secretly pointed out Ning Wangshu's shocking bruises to Ning Xinyan and said that Wei Xiyan was abusing him while she was out of the house. Ning Wangshu was a little over 2 years old. He hadn't formed a clear view of right and wrong yet. Plus, Wang Ma threatened to beat him. So when he was brought before Ning Xinyan, already long frightened out of his soul, he said that his Xiao Shu hit him. After repeated abuse, Ning Wangshu suffered from autistic symptoms. He no longer cried or laughed. Ning Xinyan naturally despised Wei Xiyan. Not only did he kick him out of the house, he also officially broke off the relationship. Xiao Xingfang's poisonous plot could be described as killing two birds with one stone. She eradicated this obstacle for her future children and kept her cheating a secret. A few years later, Wang Ma retired and the female protagonist applied for the nanny position. With her gentle care, Ning Wangshu's autistic symptoms miraculously improved, and the heroine also exposed Zhao Xingfang and Qin Yu's plot. When Ning Xinyan later sought out Wei Xiyan, he learned that because he had been abandoned by his loved ones once again, he'd already swallowed sleeping pills and committed suicide. Ning Xinyan felt extremely sorrowful and guilty, but naturally the heroine comforted him, allowing him to cheer up. Wei Xiyan was the most innocent party in the story. He actually never suspected Xiao Xinfang and Qin Yu. Forget about taking the initiative to say anything to Ning Xinyan. Even until death, he never understood why he was expelled from the Ning family. This character was very unfortunate, 100 times more unfortunate than his previous body. He was only a prop to increase the feelings between the male and female protagonist. After reading the material, Zhou Yunxiang passed a hand through his hair, silently sighing. So far, Wang Ma had already complained to Ning Xinyan twice, and was abusing Ning Wangshu even more severely. Ning Xinyan wanted to talk to Wei Xian, but Wei Xian was very closed off. Once he caught sight of him approaching, he'd immediately hide in his studio and lock the door. No matter how much Ning Xinyan called out, he wouldn't come out. This made Ning Xinyan very frustrated. He had no choice but to command Wang Ma to keep an eye out. Wang Ma herself was the culprit. If Ning Xinyan wasn't thoroughly enraged, why would she stop? Wang Ma complains again. When Wang Ma complains again, Wei Xiyan should be expelled from the house. After the last reincarnation, Zhou Yuncheng gradually acquired some knack for these things. If he wanted to completely alter the world's direction, he could change the fate of the protagonist, the original body, or other supporting roles. He could also change historical developments and major events, but the fastest way was to change the protagonist's fate. Next was the original body's fate. The other were progressively slower. The slower the choice, the more time and energy needed to be spent. As the villain, Zhao Yuncheng had already fought to the death with the protagonist hundreds of thousands of times, adding up to at least tens of thousands of years. After breaking free from the system's control, he decided unless the protagonist took the initiative to provoke him, he would never again entangle himself with the protagonist. Even with slow progress, what did time matter? Anyhow, he no longer had a time limit to complete tasks. So at the moment, his best choice was to change the original body's fate. But there was still a great deal of cleverness involved. Helping the original body avoid danger was only the most basic approach. Restoring the original body's reputation, then helping the original body accomplish an unfulfilled desire and realize their dreams. This was called the complete change. Right now, Zhou Yuncheng could admittedly go directly to Ning Xinyan and explain the situation. But who would Ning Xinyan choose to believe? Wang Ma, who served the Ning family for decades and personally brought him up, or an unfamiliar, cheap little brother with mental disabilities? The results were self-evident. Besides, how could he explain why a closed-off teenager knew so much insider information? Zhou Yuncheng repeatedly pondered for a long time. Then he decided to switch to a more tactful but also more intuitive method to resolve the crisis. He put down his paintbrush, covered the canvas with the plain white cloth, then returned to his bedroom to wash up. In the mirror, a pale and thin but stunningly pretty face emerged, carrying both masculine and feminine charm. With light coffee-colored, soft and smooth hair, obediently hanging to his ears, people couldn't help but want to touch and rub it. The original sharp eyes, once they touched the mirror, suddenly faded away, replaced by a faint, melancholic look. After adjusting his temperament to imitate the original owner, Zhou Yuncheng stripped off his clothes and walked into the shower. Due to discovering too many deadly secrets on the network, Zhou Yuncheng had long become accustomed to a life of hiding away in this place and that place in the real world. He would hack someone's identity, then disguise himself as them. Then, after a period of time, he would change into another person, cycling like this. From outer appearance to temperament, from temperament to habits, he could completely from inside and out become another person. His impeccable camouflage ability got him an appropriate code name, the Pretender. As for the side, Godslayer, that was a result of a sudden breakout of Chunibor disease. Since he'd replaced the original body, he would completely live his life the way the original did, avoid all dangers for him, and achieve his every wish. He was now Wei Xiyang, sunken into self-isolation because of the loss of his parents. After a bath and change of clothes, Ning Xinyan also came back. Wang Ma sent a maid up to call Wei Xiyan down to eat. As the male protagonist, Ning Xian's appearance was naturally extraordinarily handsome. His almost 190-centimeter tall stature made anything he wore look amazing. Now he was sitting at the dining table, gently coaxing his son, Ning Wangshu, in his arms, who was silent, not smiling or crying. Hearing footsteps, his thick, shapely eyebrows wrinkled, and an icy cold gaze was lightly cast over, full of lethality. The original Wei Xiyan, because he was too afraid of this look, refused to communicate with him, losing his chance to clarify himself. The current Zhou Yunsheng was of course not afraid, but as if frightened, he shrunk his neck and chose to sit in the farthest corner away from Ning Xinyan. Zhao Xingfang said in a soft tone, "Xinyan, give me the baby. I'll feed him. You eat first." After saying this, she gently took Ning Wangshu, her lowered eyelids covering up her deeply malicious eyes. Chapter 2. Ning Wangshu wanted to grab his father's clothes, but seeing the insidious gaze Wang Ma cast at him, he trembled in fear, then stiffly let Zhao Xingfang hold him. "Ah, open your mouth. This is baby's favorite purple jam cognac. Very sweet, very fragrant." Zhao Xingfang softly crooned, coaxing her, bearing kind, extremely patient. If Zhou Yunsheng wasn't long aware of her true nature, he would have almost been deceived by her. Ning Xinyan and Zhao Xingfang met at an orphanage. She was a volunteer. Every weekend she would go to help take care of the children. Ning Xinyan witnessed how tenderly, considerately, and patiently she treated the children, and this aroused the idea of marrying her. Right now, he was very satisfied with Zhao Xingfang's performance. His grim face eased up slightly. Zhao Yunsheng picked at his rice, his line of sight only staring at the plate in front of him. He didn't look elsewhere. Wang Ma finished the dishes and cleaned the kitchen. Laughing while wiping her hands, she said, "Madam, it's better if I feed the baby. You've had an exhausting day." Ning Wangshu's face paled, but because he was scared to death of Wang Ma's beatings, he merely gritted his teeth in silent tears, not daring to resist. Wang Ma pretended to cry out in alarm. "Aya, what's the matter? You were just in a good mood. Why are you suddenly crying suddenly? Lately, the baby has been refusing to talk, eat, and even go to sleep. He'll inexplicably start crying, but even when crying, he refuses to make a sound. It's really distressing. This is a sin. How could a good child become like this?" As she spoke, tears started falling, looking more pitiful than Ning Wangsu. Ning Wangsu was already scared into a quail, stiff and shrinking in her arms. He was even too afraid to breathe. After only being here one day, Zhao Yunsheng could already see Ning Wangshu's fear of Wang Ma. But unfortunately, Ning Xinyan was too involved and was raised up by Wang Ma. He loved her like a mother, so he really didn't notice the slightest strangeness. Right now, his rage was provoked by Wang Ma's few words. His ice-cold, sharp gaze swept Zhou Yunsheng, but because he needed to attend to the child, he reluctantly restrained himself. He picked up his son, gently comforting and coaxing, singing the nursery rhyme Wang Ma sang to him as a child. But when Ning Wangsu heard it, not only did he not calm down, his whole body started convulsing. Ning Xinyan's heart burned with worry. He immediately brought his son back to his room and repeatedly called the family doctor. Wang Ma and Zhao Xingfang ardently followed him. In the blink of an eye, only Zhou Yunsheng was left in the dining room. He put down the bowl unhurriedly, wiped his mouth
washed his hands, and returned to his room. Wei Qiyan's room was arranged very simply. The bookcase was full of books related to painting, and the drawers were mostly filled with paints and artboards. All kinds of brands. He was clearly a painting otaku. There was nothing in life but painting. But the current Zhou Yunsheng was a hacker. He needed a computer to live. After rummaging through the room for a while, he finally found the laptop in the trunk under the bed. He turned it on and connected it to the web. The light from the screen cast a shadow on the boy's delicate, androgynous face. He stared intently at the screen, his fingers moving over the keyboard at speeds the naked eye couldn't follow. A few minutes later, he was interrupted by a fierce knock on the door. He couldn't help but frown. Wei Xiyang, we need to talk. Come out. Ning Xinyan shouted while knocking on the door. There was no sign of movement inside, so he was a little agitated, unable to hold back from kicking the door. Fortunately, Ning family was very rich. The doors were all well made, solid wood doors. Unless he brought in another two big men, it wouldn't be so easy to break into the room. Zhou Yunsheng's tight nerves relaxed. He pursed his lips, then picked up a teacup on his desk and ruthlessly smashed it on the door, expressing his determination not to meet with him. The former Wei Xian was afraid to talk with Ning Xinyan, but Zhou Yunsheng simply didn't want to talk to him. Ning Xinyan had sentenced Wei Xian to death in his heart long ago. No matter how Wei Xian explained it, he probably wouldn't listen. Ning Xinyan heard a loud noise and saw the tea seeping out along the carpet. Apparently the man inside was also very agitated. Thinking of his parents' warning to not upset Wei Xian under any circumstances, he pulled his tie, having no choice but to walk away. His son had purple bruises on his body. He'd already sent photographs to his parents on the other side of the ocean, but they resolutely didn't believe him, only saying that Wei Xian would never hurt others. Even a cup could be smashed. Was that the attitude of someone who would never hurt others? If he didn't do it, then was it Xing Feng? Wang Ma? One was gentle, introverted, and kind-hearted wife. The other was Wang Ma, who raised him up. She was like a mother to him. If Ning Xinyan had to doubt someone, it would never be those two. Not to mention his son himself, that his Xiaoshu hit him. He was so small, how could he lie? Hearing the footsteps gradually going away, Zhou Yunsheng clicked the enter key and a small program was sent to Ning Xinyan's computer. Ning Xinyan kept watch at his son's bedside, looking at his panicked and restless sleep. Despite being injected with a sedative, his heart suddenly twisted in heartache. The family doctor's words echoed over and over again in his mind. Mr. Mr. Ning, look at this situation. Your son's abuse has left a psychological shadow. You need to find him a psychologist as soon as possible and keep him away from the source of terror. Keep him away from the source of terror? Ning Xinyan mused for a moment, quietly walking over to his study. Xiao Xingfang stood under the hallway's lamplight. Seeing him approaching, she said in a low voice, I'm sorry, Xinyan. I didn't take good care of the baby. Do you want me to quit my job at the orphanage? Wang Ma is watching the baby by herself. She'll inevitably have times where her hands are full. Also, I've already contacted a psychologist from the capital's medical university department of psychology, Dr. Sun Wen. He has done a lot of research on child psychology problems. He's second to none in the country. This is his business card. You keep it. I'll take the baby to see the doctor every Wednesday. You don't have to resign. You don't have to resign. You only go on the weekends. It doesn't take much time. Besides, there's 1,000 days to be a thief, but not 1,000 days to guard against theft. I told my parents I'm striving to send Wei Xian out as soon as possible. I originally planned to contact Dr. Kuran, but you were a step faster than me. Dr. Sun Wen is also very good, Plus, he's currently in the country. Very convenient. Xingfang, you've worked hard. Ning Xinyan took a look at the business card. Xiao Xingfang saw his exhausted expression and opened her mouth, but ultimately didn't say anything. The two brothers' time together wasn't long. The feelings were weak, but if they got the chance to grow closer someday, who knew if Wei Xiyan might speak about that day. Now, not only did her scheme work, that little bastard Ning Wangsu was turned into an idiot. Zhao Xingfang's heart was filled with pleasure. She smiled pleasantly as she opened the door for her husband. Ning Xinyan walked up to the window and lit a cigarette, the orange-red cigarette butt flickering rapidly, as if he was in an anxious mood. In less than half a minute, he'd smoked the whole cigarette, so he turned on the desk lamp and called his parents. The number you have dialed is turned off. The number you have dialed is turned off. The number you have dialed. After consecutively failing to connect a few times, he exasperatedly threw away the phone. However, it accidentally hit the mouse, activating the standby computer, and that box jumped out. The orange font was very eye-catching. Ning Xinyan was reaching to turn it off, but froze when he saw the contents clearly. Are you still worried about theft? Are you still worried about the lazy nanny? Are you still angry about your child being abused by the nanny? Pinhole cameras solve all your worries. On-site installation, convenient and practical. Ning Xinyan ignored the following content, his eyes quickly flashing a bright light. Since his parents didn't want to believe, he'd placed the evidence in front of them, with irrefutable proof. Even if Wei Xiyan stubbornly refused to go, he could call people to throw him out, and also let him pay a painful price. He picked up his phone again and dialed Zhao Yun's number. Zhao Yun lived west of Ning family mansion. A former mercenary, he now served as Ning Xinyan's driver and bodyguard, but he was also responsible for handling Ning Xinyan's many matters that should not see the light. After he received the call, he didn't ask any question, quickly preparing a set of monitoring equipment. The next day, Ning Xinyan went to work. Zhao Yun pretended to clean the air conditioning units, installing the pinhole surveillance cameras in every corner of the Ning residence. He didn't even lift off the bathrooms. Finally, a rice grain-sized eavesdropper tool was placed inside Ning Wangshu's longevity locket. Now was summer vacation. Zhou Yunsheng didn't need to attend class. After getting up and eating breakfast, he shut himself in his studio. He was now replacing Wei Xiyan. Naturally, he would help Wei Xiyan achieve his dreams. There was no doubt Wei Xiyan's dream was to become a great painter. Sensing the many monitoring tools in the house, his originally unhappy mood slowly brightened. He stretched out white, slender fingers and pulled off the white cloth on the canvas. This was a newly completed rural landscape painting. It was the scenery around the Ning mansion. Under the brilliant sunshine was a blooming garden of Chinese roses and Japanese roses. The large expanse of warm hues made people feel delighted. But the honest Wei Xiyan's painting style indeed had a little spirituality, but because of his narrow scope and closed-off personality, it was missing something more in depth. His paintings were very delicate, very beautiful, and gave visual enjoyment, but it couldn't shake people's souls. Zhou Yunsheng had reincarnated hundreds of times. Although he played the villain in every life, it couldn't be denied that if the villain had no ability, how could they compete with the protagonist? In every reincarnation, he not only strived to complete a task, he also didn't forget to learn a variety of skills. He has been a scholar, state teacher, emperor, immortal cultivator, also a knight, duke, the pope, magician, etc. These experiences gave him endless pain, but also gave him priceless wealth. He picked up many diverse skills, which naturally included painting, whether it was traditional Chinese painting, oil painting, sketching, or watercolor. As long as he had a brush he could create a world. His mastery of painting was totally incomparable with Wei Xian. Even in this world, there was no one who could stand toe-to-toe with him. So when it came to completing Wei Xian's dream, Zhou Yunsheng was simply not troubled. He unhurriedly observed Wei Xian's painting, analyzing his painting technique. The room was extremely quiet. Not only the sound of the breeze blowing the tree leaves could be heard. At this time, a little figure walked in. He stood in a doorway, looking in, apparently attracted by the fascinating scenery on the canvas. Step by step, he soundlessly and cautiously walked up to behind Zhou Yunsheng. Zhou Yunsheng finished analyzing Wei Xian's painting style. He turned to pick up the brush and palette, but met Ning Wangshu's eyes. The two were both somewhat autistic, obviously shocked by each other. They shared a "you look at me, I look at you" blank look. After a long time, Zhou Yunsheng slowly stretched out his hand and picked up the palette on top of the small stool beside Ning Wangshu. Ning Wangshu intended to retreat backwards, but stopped when he found that he wasn't trying to touch him. With a pair of wide-open big eyes, he raised his head and looked up. Zhou Yunsheng ignored him. He diluted the paint and focused on painting the canvas. Uncle and nephew stood close together, one seriously painting, the other focusing on watching. Two exquisite faces with the same deadpan expression. The scene seemed a little funny, but also looked so warm and lovely. Chapter 3. When looking at Zhou Yunsheng, Ning Wangshu's whole body was stiff, ready to use his short legs to escape any time. But the other party was very careful to avoid him, just picking up the palette and brushes by his side, then turning around to paint. No other action. Ning Wangshu was quietly relieved. He shuffled to Zhou Yunsheng's side, turning up his small head to look at the canvas with gleaming eyes. Zhou Yunsheng had completely lost sight of the little thing at his feet. He had completely inherited Wei Xian's fanatical love of painting, his brush constantly moving. Wei Xian was an expert in modern style, direct painting, which was drawing an outline directly on the canvas, then slowly coloring it. But Zhou Yunsheng was an expert in the more ancient transparent painting technique, which was multi-level depiction without adding white, but only using paint diluted by a medium. The next layer of paint must be added after the previous layer has dried. And it can be said that before he even starts, his mind has already completed the whole painting. Because each layer of color was thinner, the lower layer of color could be faintly revealed, blending into subtle hues with the upper layer of color. So this painting method required more sophisticated skills and an even more accurate grasp and judgment of coloration harmony. Wei Xian's painting used a large area of warm hues and was already completely dry. Zhou Yunsheng added blue, purple, and green, so that the warm hues gradually became cold, and lastly used the resin to glaze, making it appear that there were layers upon layers of grey. After about half an hour, the original scene of a brocade-like garden of dazzling blossoming flowers had become a forest immersed in starlight. The twinkling stars filling the sky gave out a weak light. It seemed like as long as you reached out, you would be able to pick them with your fingers. Placed there, it didn't look like a painting. Rather, it was the entrance to another world, beautifully real, yet beautifully illusory. Zhou Yunsheng backed up a few steps, sizing up his handiwork, when a faint exclamation of wonder entered his ears. At this, he pulled his mind away from the painting and looked down at the little guy by his feet. The day became night, sunshine became starlight, the garden became a forest. Even if Ning Wangsu was still too small to know what was aesthetic, he was overwhelmed by Xiao Shu's superb painting technique. Realizing that he had disturbed his xiaoshu, Ning Wangshu quickly covered his mouth with little chubby hands, big eyes full of panic. Zhao Zhou Yunsheng merely glanced at him, then turned back, continuing to size up the painting. He picked up the brush to make minor adjustments. Ning Wangsu was relieved, seeing that his xiaoshu didn't plan to drive him out. His courage slowly grew, and his small hands explored the brushes on the small stool. Reach out and pull back, reach out and pull back. After struggling for a long time, he finally took a brush in his hand. There were a few pieces of white cloth spread on the ground, along with an oil barrel for cleaning the brushes. Ning Wangshu quickly dipped the brushes in a little poppy oil. Squatting on the ground, he began smearing paint on the white cloth. He tried to draw a few stars, but found that the painting didn't shine like Xiaoshu's. With a serious face, he tried to paint the sun. He was happily playing, not noticing that Zhao Yunsheng had already completed the final modification and was bent over staring at him. No, you can't play with this. The young man's voice was pleasant, like a trickle of water, but the strength that took away the painting brush wasn't weak. Ning Wangshu froze in fright, his small, rosy little face instantly paling. Like a small quail, he ran to a corner and curled up. Zhou Yunsheng didn't comfort him. He put the paintbrushes and oil barrel on the windowsill where the little guy couldn't reach, then walked out of the studio. Ning Wangshu covered his little face and started to cry, drenching the white cloth spread on the ground. He looked very pitiful. But not long after, the boy came back in, holding a box of watercolor pens and a stack of white paper. He stopped the hand on the stooped to hand the items to the little guy and said, "Use this to paint. Paint and poppy oil contain toxins. Small baby can't touch it. You'll get sick." Seeing the little guy still in tears, refusing to look up and listen to him, Zhou Yunsheng didn't continue persuading him. He laid down the watercolor pens and white paper, then turned away to continue painting. He himself was slightly autistic, saying so much was already considered a miracle. It seemed that his xiaoshu didn't despise him. Ning Wangshu's distressed mood was greatly soothed. He rubbed his eyes and quietly raised his head. He was about to reach out to take the watercolor pens when the young man suddenly turned towards him. He jumped in fright and sunk into himself, hugging his head like a small turtle. Zhou Yunsheng was almost amused by the little guy, but because of the monitors, he had to strive to restrain himself. He took a deep few breaths and maintained a serious expression as he removed a white shirt hanging on the aisle, then helped the little guy get dressed. He said in a low voice, "Obviously put it on. Your clothes don't get dirty." Ning Wangshu stopped struggling, letting his xiaoshu help him put on the clothes. The shirt was very big. The sleeves were rolled up and up to barely expose a pair of tender little hands. The hem was also hanging down, just enough to cover the trousers. Zhou Yunxiang helped him organize the lapel, stiffly rubbed his head, then turned to continue painting. Ning Wangshu also touched his forehead, feeling the nearly dissipated warmth. His heart felt a little sweet. He didn't smile, but his eyes were unprecedentedly bright. Picking up the brush, he started doodling like Xiaoshu's paintings. A dropped needle could be heard in the quiet studio. Uncle and nephew painted side by side. Their figures seemed so harmonious enough to warm the soul. Time unknowingly passed till around 4 in the afternoon, when Wang Ma carried a basket filled with vegetables slowly into the house. There was another maid at home, so she didn't need to constantly take care of things. Moreover, she was getting older and too impatient to look after children. Every day after Ning Xinyan left, she excused herself to buy vegetables, carrying out a basket, but actually she runs to the nearby park and plays cards with the other maids. Before, she avoided being lazy in front of Xiao Xingfang, but now that she was profiting from Xiao Xingfang, she acted more and more unscrupulous. Xiao Xingfang's days also didn't match Ning Xinyan's perception. He thought that when she wasn't out volunteering, she was home taking care of her stepson. But in fact, she also goes out as soon as he leaves, either going shopping or playing cards or to the beauty salon, etc. Anyways, Ning Xinyan was very busy and never came home. Even if he came back, it would be very late, so she and Wang Ma were at the same mind. As long as they came back before 6 o'clock, everything was fine. Today was Sunday. She had the excuse of going to the orphanage to help, so she could come back even later. Wang Ma asked the maid, learning that Xiao Xingfang hadn't come back yet. Then she went upstairs to find Ning Wangshu in the studio. Ning Wangshu heard Wang Ma's shouts. His face was scared white, and his small body couldn't stop shaking. Zhou Yuncheng patted the little head to pacify him, then helped him remove the shirt and wash his hands. The former Wei Xian had actually noticed Ning Wangshu's strangeness. He'd once heard Ning Wangshu's heartbreaking sobs and summoned up the courage to run over to inquire. Wang Ma gave him the excuse that the child had a decayed tooth, so he was crying from the unbearable pain. But Wei Xian still had doubts when he heard this. After choking for a long time until his face turned very red, he managed to spit out a "really," but under Wang Ma's glare, he had no choice but to retreat. When he left, Wang Ma closed the door and continued beating Ning Wangshu. He hadn't even entered her eyes. Now, Zhou Yuncheng also didn't have Wang Ma in his eyes. He gently hugged the little guy, patiently patting his back in comfort. When Wang Ma came to the door to ask for the child, not only did he not hand him over, he also shut the door firmly in her face, causing Wang Ma to almost bump her nose crooked. "Bah, little bastard, who do you think you are? Sooner or later I'll have Xinyan drive you out." Wang Ma spit at the door. Zhou Yunsheng turned a deaf ear to the abuse outside the door, letting go of the little guy and continuing to paint. Only Xia Shu could see his fear and despair. Only Xia Shu wouldn't hand him over to Wang Ma. Only Xia Shu would so resolutely protect him. Although it was just a closed door, it actually separated him from all the dangers. Ning Wangshu was only 3 years old, but he already had self-awareness. This moment produced indelible attachment to Zhou Yunsheng, but he was also vaguely aware that saying these words in front of his father would produce a negative effect for Xiao Shu. He was very happy, but at the same time a little sad, carefully hugging his Xiao Shu's thigh. Zhou Yunsheng tried to shake him off in rejection, but the movement was very gentle. Ning Wangshu wasn't afraid this time. He perseveringly held on tight. Zhou Yunsheng couldn't get rid of the small tail, so he had no choice but to helplessly let him hug. If he moved to the left, the little guy also staggered to the left. If he moved to the right, he also stumbled to the right, like a whoopee cow. Extremely hard to tear off, the scene was very comical. Uncle and nephew played happily. Wang Ma was also happy to not have to bother, making the maid hurriedly cook something for her to eat. Who would foresee that before even 5:30 arrived, there was the sound of a car engine outside? Ning Xinyan had unexpectedly come back. Remembering the uncle and nephew getting along harmoniously in the study, Wang Ma was anxious. She quickly rushed upstairs, calling out in a harsh but quiet voice, "Wei Xiyan, quickly send out the baby. Mr. Ning came back. If you let him see you together with the baby, he'll kick you out." As Ning Xinyan showed a more and more cold and disgusted attitude, the original Wei Xian really didn't dare stay too close to Ning Wangshu. Zhou Yunsheng, although he knew the truth, he also didn't intend to expose Wang Ma's trickery. He opened the door and brought out the frightened Ning Wangshu. Ning Wangshu's forehead was rubbed by his Xiaoshu. His deep fear had been reduced, plus he understood that as long as his father came back, Wang Ma wouldn't hit him, so he reluctantly walked over. Wang Ma impatiently dragged the child to her side. Regardless of if he could keep up, she half dragged and half pulled him down the stairs. She whispered a threat. "You're not allowed to follow that bastard Weishi anymore. Otherwise, I'll peel your skin." Xiaoshu is not a bastard. Ning Wangshu, who hadn't spoken in a long time, suddenly let out a clear and incomparable retort. Wang Ma was stunned for a few seconds, then her expression twisted. She reached out and forcefully grabbed Ning Wangshu's ear. Ning Wangshu proficiently shrunk his shoulders and covered his head with his hands, silently enduring. Fortunately, Ning Xinyan was anxious to see his son and was already hastily running upstairs. Wang Ma pulled back and dragged the child into her arms while putting on a smile. She muttered between gritted teeth, "Not only is Wei Xinyan a bastard, you're also a bastard. If you don't obediently listen to me, I'll throw you into the river to drown. Your dad has a new wife. He'll have many more children in the future. He won't care about you at all." Ning Wangshu was frightened. He shut his eyes despairingly, tears plopping down. Chapter 4. When Ning Xinyan left for work, he actually hadn't gone to the company, but was hiding in an underground parking lot near the house, wearing headphones to listen in on the movements in his home. Jia Yun stayed in the west residence to stare at the monitors. Once Wei Xiyan made the slightest move against Ning Wangshu, he would immediately rush over to block him, and also send a video to Ning parents on the other side of the ocean. After putting on the headphones, Ning Xinyan was very nervous. His son's fearful look was permanently engraved in his mind. He was afraid of him suffering the slightest injury again. He concentrated all his attention on the headset, thinking as long as there were abnormalities, he'd immediately step on the accelerator and return home. The monitoring device was in his son's hollow longevity lock pendant. The quality was very clear. He heard Wang Ma repeatedly warn his son not to run around the house. The tone was very severe. His son didn't make a sound. Then there was a long silence. Ning Xinyan went from tense to numb. Gripping the steering wheel, he maintained the same position until around 1 p.m. When he'd almost turned into stone statue, a clear voice came through the other end. "No, you can't play with this." It was Wei Xiyan's unique flat tone. Ning Xinyan immediately sat bolt upright. Holding his breath, he carefully distinguished the hidden emotions in the voice. Unexpectedly, there wasn't the slightest trace of malice. Although his strong judgment ability told him this, he still put a hand on the start button, preparing to start the engine. Before he could press down, the clear voice sounded again, still with the same flat tone, but the words were overflowing with unmistakable care. "Use this to paint. Paint and poppy oil contain toxins. Small babies can't touch it. You'll get sick." Turns out he was stopping his son from playing with oil paints. This was right. Blameless. Ning Xinyan let out a long breath, withdrawing his hand from the start button and resting his forehead on the steering wheel, exhausted. There was another burst of silence. When Wei Xiyan talked again, he had already learned to calm down. "Obediently put it on, so your clothes don't dirty." He was putting a bib on his son, so the paint wouldn't stick to his clothes. This was also blameless. Ning Xinyan's brows twisted. He didn't understand if the young man he personally caring for his son and the extremely irritably aggressive man in Wang Ma's description was the same person. He felt that either something went wrong or the teenager was just good at pretending. But even if he pretends, wouldn't his son, the victim, know how to stay away from him? He'd hear his son's light footstep clearly. His son ran into the study himself. Ning Xinan took off the headphones, shoved his hair back, and finally decided to go home. When the car had barely arrived at the house, Xiao Yun came out from the west wing to welcome him. He whispered, "Boss, you better look at the monitor yourself. Maybe we were all wrong." Ning Xinyan nodded, leaving him to dash upstairs, but he bumped into Wang Ma, carrying his son. His son still had the extremely frightened expression. His big eyes were filled with tears, looking very, very fragile. In the audio, he almost never spoke, but the sound of the paintbrush rubbing against paper showed that his mood was very calm. It could even be called happy. How did he completely change by the time he returned? Ning Xinyan's heart was even more doubtful. He took his son from Wang Ma, but was shocked when he resisted him, resentment filling his eyes. Ning Xinyan suddenly felt strangled by heartache. He desperately wanted to find out what happened on this quiet day. Wang Ma, take the baby to the garden to look at the ducklings. I'll come out after I change my clothes. He handed his son to Wang Ma, then rushed to the study. He impatiently turned on the computer and pulled up today's recording. All of the pinhole cameras followed Ning Wang Shu's movements and alternated angles. Wang Ma went out early to grocery shop, and Ning Wang Shu was left alone, sitting on the carpet playing with his toys. His face was without the slightest expression, like an empty shell without a soul. He sat till noon, then the maid brought in lunch. She put it down and immediately left. She didn't even try to coax and feed him. But Ning Wang Shu was very clever. He slowly ate his cake, then sipped his milk. Afterwards, he walked his short feet towards the direction of the studio. Ning Xinyan's thick eyebrows unconsciously rose. If Wei Xiyan had truly beaten his son several times, why would his son still take the initiative to look for him? He restrained his worries, continuing to look down. Ning Wangshu walked to the door, stretching out his small head to peep in for a long time. When he saw that Wei Xiyan was completely immersed in painting, he quietly walked over. Wei Xiyan turned to pick up a brush, then one tall and one short person suddenly made contact. They looked at each other. Ning Xinyan also held his breath, his fists unconsciously clenching. He was terrified of Wei Xian's mood going out of control and attacking his son. But that didn't happen. He very carefully avoided his son and picked up the brush to continue painting. His son's frightened mood instantly calmed down. His almost apathetic little face showing an astonished expression. Those flickering eyes almost drove Ning Xinyan to tears. The following was Wei Xian stopping his son from playing with oil paint, gently helping him into a shirt and affectionately rubbing his hair. When his slender hands withdrew, his son blankly touched his own forehead. His big eyes were sentimental. Who could feel sentimental towards someone who beat them up? Ning Xinyan's taut nerves twinged painfully. He endured his throbbing heartbeat and continued looking down. One large and one small person stood side by side, one tall and one short, artboard placed in front of them. The youth's canvas was blossoming starlight, and his son's canvas was a dense mass of color. It was impossible to guess what it was, but he was very happy with it, and even pulled the youth close to let him appreciate his masterpiece. The youth didn't speak, gently rubbing his hair to show praise. His son's eyes emitted an unprecedented light. He was clearly very happy. Ning Xinyan didn't notice that he was also unconsciously smiling. The sharpness in his eyes had long been replaced by tenderness. He silently stared at the two people on the screen, only feeling that life was stable and time was still. But soon Wang Ma's shouting broke the warm scene, and his son started trembling uncontrollably. His healthy red face instantly paled, revealing the expression of horror Ning Xinyan was familiar with. Wan Ma appeared at the door, loudly shouting to bring Ning Wangshu out, but Wei Xiyan took 2 steps over and slammed the door shut. Miraculously, Ning Wangshu, rather than being shaken, clung to Wei Qian's thigh, his small face overflowing with worship and attachment, as if Wei Qian was his hero. Ning Xinyan was stunned, staring at the screen. His heart started sinking until it fell into a bitingly cold abyss. He finally realized that he had been deceived. He clicked fast forward and saw Wang Ma frantically pounding the door. After the door opened, she boorishly dragged her son away, her ferocious expression revealing what kind of malice she was bearing towards his son. Ning Xinyan immediately stopped fast-forwarding. Wang Ma's vicious voice entered his ear. "You're not allowed to follow that bastard Wei Xiyan anymore, otherwise I'll peel your skin." "Not only is Wei Xiyan a bastard, you're also a bastard. If you don't obediently listen to me, I'll throw you into the river to drown. Your dad has a new wife. He'll have many more children in the future. He won't care about you at all." So that's it. This was how Wang Ma actually treated his child in private. Ning Xinyan's forehead veins bulged. He was angry enough to nearly lose his mind. At this point, if he couldn't see the truth, he was a complete fool. Thinking of how he'd just handed his son to Wang Ma, Ning Xinyan suddenly got up and ran outside. When Ning Xinyan returned home, Zhou Yunsheng had quietly returned to his room. He switched on the AI and invaded Ning Xinyan's monitoring system in minutes. Zhou Yunsheng worked very cautiously in order to prevent idlers from snooping around. He even installed several cameras in Ning Xinyan's study and bedroom. Zhou Yunsheng transferred his view to the study, stirring his coffee while enjoying Ning Xinyan's fluctuating complexion. After looking enough, he took a small sip of coffee, then walked to the door, staring out at Ning Wangshu, watching the ducks with Wang Ma on the lawn. Ning Wangshu's arm was being grabbed by Wang Ma. He stood in place, not daring to move, his small body trembling slightly, obviously extremely distressed inside. If Zhou Yunsheng was still alive, if Zhou Yunsheng was still villain Zhou Yunsheng, he would truly be striding forwards to twist off Wang Ma's neck. But he was now Wei Xiyan. Wei Xiyan's hand could only be used to paint. They couldn't be stained with blood. Truly a pity. He looked down and sighed. When he heard Ning Xinyan's urgent footsteps, he immediately turned back into the house. When he bumped into Wei Xiyan in the corridor, Ning Xinyan's expression was slightly stunned, and his heart was guilty and embarrassed. But his son was still in Wang Ma's hand. He didn't have time to think of other things. He hurriedly nodded and ran out to the lawn. He noticed that Zhao Yun was standing close by, watching Wang Ma like a hawk, and his heartstrings loosened slightly. Ning Wangshu's head was lowered, his shoulders shrunk in, standing rigidly by Wang Ma's side. Wang Ma was cupping a yellow duckling, trying to use its soft fur to caress his cheeks. His eyes were wide open in fear. It seemed like Wang Ma wasn't holding a lovely little animal, but a human-eating monster. He was frightened by the beatings, his courage to resist long dead. But his loved ones turned a blind eye to his suffering, even handing him over to the devil again and again. No wonder he was full of resistance towards his father. No wonder he held a grudge against him. No wonder Wei Xiyan merely closed the door, yet it was enough to produce such attachment and worship in his eyes. Ning Xinyan's heart was repeatedly cut by these belated realizations. It was unbearably painful. At this moment, he almost couldn't help but shed tears. However, in the end, he was the head of the Ning family, known as the Cunning Fox, a business overlord. When he reached his son, he had already tidied up his mood, smiling as he took his son and carried him into the house, saying lightly, "Look at you, playing around with all these dirty things. Let Papa give you a bath. Wang Ma, you go make steamed egg pudding for the baby." Wang Ma didn't suspect him. She put down the duckling and headed to the kitchen. Ning Xinyan returned to the bedroom, carrying his son that no longer talked, nor smiled, nor cried, and firmly shut the door. He gently placed him on the bed, then squatted in front of him. His always solemn appearance revealed deep sadness and guilt. "Baby, I'm sorry. Papa is so sorry." He kissed his son's forehead over and over again, but he could no longer see a trace of affection in his son's eyes. Ning Wangshu was extremely disappointed in his father. He was already completely numb. Chapter 5. Ning Xinyan apologized. Ning Wangshu absolutely couldn't hear him. He just quietly looked at his father with pitch-black eyes. Ning Xinyan hugged him tightly, using all his strength, kissing his forehead and hair. It took a few minutes to temporarily pacify his rage. Then he quietly asked, "Baby, tell Papa who's really hitting you. Is it Wang Ma?" Ning Wangshu trembled, but remained silent. Ning Xinyan hurriedly patted his back. He repeatedly questioned, but Ning Wangshu stayed silent, so he had no choice but to appease. "Baby, don't be afraid. Papa will protect you." He paused, then struggled with guilt as he continued. "As long as you tell me, Papa will definitely help you punish the bad guy. But if you hide it because you're too afraid, Papa can only make Uncle Xian leave." "Don't!" Ning Wangshu, who had been silent for 10 consecutive days, shouted in panic. Ning Xinyan's heart trembled. He forced himself to continue interrogating. "Don't what? Don't throw Uncle Xian out? Then tell Papa who has been hitting you, okay? If you don't tell Papa, how can Papa protect you? You're Papa's only child, Papa's treasure. Papa will never not care about you. Do you know?" He tried to slow down his tone as much as possible, enticing his son to take down the defenses around his heart. Ning Wangshu struggled for a long time before he whispered in a barely audible voice, "Don't make Uncle Xiang go away. Wang Ma hit me, not Uncle." He finally raised his head. His tears-filled eyes looked straight at his father. Ning Xinyan also had wet eyes. Cupping his head, he repeatedly kissed him, then pulled him into his arms. His cautious treatment was like he'd recovered a long-lost treasure. If the monitors weren't installed, he probably would have always been kept in the dark. Who would have thought that the real culprit would be the Wang Ma who'd worked hard without complaint to raise him up? If he had driven Wei Xian away, his son would have only fallen into a more tragic situation. His autistic symptoms would have also become more and more serious. Ning Xinyan's disgust, hatred, and anger were all vented on an innocent man, while Wang Ma was uninhibited, probably secretly mocking his stupidity. Thinking of this, Ning Xinyan's face flushed, like he was fiercely slapped dozens of times, ashamed of his failure. Zhou Yunsheng saw Ning Xinyan's embarrassed expression through the AI on his wrist. He bowed his head to avoid the pinhole camera and smiled happily. He stood up, stretched, taking off his clothes while walking towards the bathroom. But while standing under the shower head, his muscles were slightly stiff. Zhao Yun seemed to have also installed a pinhole camera in the bathroom, and more than one. His work was really too attentive. The corners of Zhou Yunsheng's mouth pulled up, and he continued nonchalantly taking a shower. Ning Xinyan was straight. He shouldn't have an interest in peeping at men in the shower. Besides, even if you let him see, what was the harm? After playing the role of countless villains, Zhou Yunsheng's shame and integrity had been eaten away hundreds of years ago. Ning Xinyan got the truth from his son's mouth. Then he bathed him and changed his clothes, repeatedly assuring him that Wang Ma would be driven away. Ning Wangshu was very excited, but because of the repeated torment he'd received, he'd even forgotten how to laugh. Only the corners of his mouth slightly curved. Seeing this broke Ning Xinyan's heart. Ning Xinyan was known as the cunning fox in the business world. It wasn't difficult to figure out that his son's abuse must have a hidden ulterior motive behind it. Wang Ma has served the Ning family for a lifetime. She even worked hard without complaint to raise him up. Why did her temperament change at this age? Wang Ma wasn't a pervert. She naturally hadn't abused his son to satisfy selfish desire. So what was her motivation? Ning Xinyan believed that benefits were the main motivator of human activities. Wang Ma abused his son because she could benefit from it. Then who would profit from his son's abuse and Xian's expulsion? Ning Xinyan thought of a person. His brows fiercely wrinkled. If it was her, things might be even more complicated than he thought. The father and son stayed in the room, affectionate for a long time, finally getting back a little bit of the former warmth and harmony in their interaction. At this time, the bedroom door opened and Xiao Xingfang came in, carrying a bag. She said in an exhausted tone, "Xinyan, Wang Ma called you guys down to eat. I'll change my clothes first. You don't have to wait for me." Ning Xinyan promised. Holding his son, he walked down to the dining room and saw a young man sitting upright in the corner, his hair wet. Ning Xinyan gently said, "Why didn't you blow dry your hair before coming down? Isn't your concern coming out too late?" Zhou Yunsheng's heart lightly ridiculed, but he reddened his cheeks slightly, pretending to be startled and lowering his head. Ning Xinyan let out a helpless sigh, but didn't dare scold him again. Afraid to scare him, in the past, Wei Shiyan always avoided his gaze. He just thought that the other man had a guilty consciousness, but now he knew that it was because of shyness. His childhood tragedy caused him to seal his heart, the same as his son. Thinking of this, Ning Xinyan's heart softened. He inwardly vowed that from now on he would take good care of the younger man and never let him bear the slightest grievance again. Wang Ma was very surprised by Ning Xinyan's sudden attitude change. She almost dropped the dishes. Xiao Xingfang also coincidentally walked in at this time. The two women quickly glanced at each other. That atmosphere at dinner was very subtle. Ning Wangshu obediently nested in his father's embrace, eating his dinner, his gleaming eyes occasionally looking towards his Xiao Shu. Brimming with tranquility and happiness inside, Zhou Yunsheng ate by himself, and after finishing his meal, he headed back to his room, his head lowered, avoiding looking at anyone. "Is baby full? Come with Papa to the study to read." Ning Xinyan saw that his son refused to touch the spoon again, so he slowly helped him wipe his mouth. Ning Wangshu nodded, his eyes slightly bright. He was actually very afraid that his father would hand him to Wang Ma again. Ning Xinyan kissed his son and carried him upstairs. Ning Wangshu has always been very clever and quiet. He'll happily play with a set of building bricks for several hours. Ning Xinyan set him on his lap, then spread building blocks over the huge desk, letting him play as he stared at the monitor. In a room across the corridor, Zhou Yunsheng was lying on the bed, wearing a large white shirt without any pants. Swinging his pair of long white legs, he leisurely looked at the picture album while staring at the AI. He'd really enjoyed watching Ning Xinyan's face go through those phases of realization, but he was looking forward to Zhao Xingfang and Wang Ma's wonderful performance even more. After making sure Ning Xinyan had already left, Zhao Xingfang put down her chopstick and asked, "Wang Ma, you didn't complete the task today?" "I was playing cards with my sisters today and forgot the time. Tomorrow I'll definitely do it for you. Tomorrow. Wang Ma replied in a low voice. Hurry up. Every time I see Wei Xian, I feel uneasy. Also, be more ruthless. You'd better turn that little bastard into an idiot. Anyway, you have Wei Xian for a scapegoat. What are you afraid of? Xiao Xingfang urged. Then seemed to feel very amused. She even chuckled. Wang Ma nodded repeatedly. I got it. Then the money we agreed on beforehand? As long as Wei Xian gets kicked out, I'll immediately call you. If that little bastard becomes an idiot, I'll add another 500,000. Xiao Xingfang generously promised. Wang Ma was unable to contain her joy, repeatedly promising to complete the task tomorrow. They were totally unaware that inside the flower vase on the dining table, a pinhole camera was hidden. The expressions, actions, and dialogue were all covered into image data and transferred to the computer screen. Sitting in front of the computer, Ning Xinyan's face had already been completely distorted. His eyes burned with angry flames. Although he had guessed it was the two women, after truly hearing them, he was itching to dismember them into 10,000 pieces. Ning Wangshu keenly sensed his mood change and started trembling. At this, Ning Xinyan snapped out of it, then exhausted all his efforts to suppress his fury. He kissed the top of his son's head, his lowered eyes contemplating. Zhao Xingfang harmed his son to clear out an obstacle for her future children. He could infer this, but for what purpose did she desperately want to kick Xian out? Xian's parents left him a huge inheritance. He really didn't care about the Ning family's property. It could be said that his eyes and heart were only focused on painting. There were no secular things. How could he obstruct Xia Xingfang? Ning Xinyan guessed that there might be an even deeper reason behind it. Time unknowingly passed while he was pondering, so when he finally snapped out of it, Ning Wangshu was already lying asleep on the table. Ning Xinyan carried him back to his room, gently covered him with the quilt, kissed his forehead, and said quietly. After a long while, he closed the door and left. Jia Yun had escorted Wang Ma to the study. They were currently waiting for him. Wang Ma, you've gotten older. Go home today. Ning Xinyan sat in the leather chair and got straight to the point. These old arms and legs can still last a few more years. Plus, with the baby being harmed like that, I feel anxious if I just leave. Xinyan, I know you're worried about me, but I'm even more worried for you and the baby. In my eyes, you guys are no different than my own children and grandchildren. Wang Ma spoke while shedding tears, but in reality her heart was slamming wildly. Ling Xinyan sneered. If 500,000 can persuade you to kill your own grandchildren, I really don't dare accept these feelings. Wang Ma turned pale with fright. She stammered to form an explanation, but saw the man turn the computer screen around. On it was the scene of her and Xiao Xingfang whispering. Realizing that it would be impossible to dispute, Wang Ma spilled the beans about how Xiao Xingfang's affair was accidentally seen by Wei Xian, and how she colluded with her to drive him out. Then she started reminiscing about the past, trying to use warmth to move the furious man. Xiao Xingfang, Xian Yu, Ning Xinyan chewed over these two names. His deep eyes slowly turned red with rage. Wang Ma got up at night for a drink of water, but tripped on the stairs and broke her legs. I felt distressed for her and let her recuperate in the hospital for several months. This matter helped me arrange it, okay? He looked straight at Zhao Yun. Even Zhao Yun, who'd walked through battlefields, couldn't help but feel intimidated by his sinister eyes. After he stabilized his mood, he immediately took out a syringe and stabbed it into Wang Ma's neck. Wang Ma's eyes rolled over, then she fell unconscious to the ground. Xiao Yan circled around Wang Ma twice, then unhurriedly broke her left leg. The crisp sound would make someone's scalp grow numb. But Ning Qinyan felt it wasn't enough, lightly saying, "The right leg too." Xiao Yun did according to his words and broke Wang Ma's two legs. Then he carried her on his shoulder, found no one in the corridor, and quietly left. Ning Xinyan stood up, walked to the front window to smoke. He caught a glimpse of the monitoring tool that was still on. His eyes flashed. Wei Xiyan was unwittingly lying in bed, asleep, wearing only a large white shirt. His smooth white legs unconsciously curled up, his toes restlessly twitching. He was clearly being blown by a cold air-conditioned wind. This guy really couldn't take care of himself. Ning Xinyan sighed, finished off the cigarette, and quietly walked to the youth room. A picture album was scattered on the bed. After putting it back into the bookcase, he reached out and gently adjusted his sleeping position. Then he covered him with a thin quilt and slightly increased the air conditioning temperature. The teenager mumbled, burying his delicate face in a soft pillow, and yearningly rubbed against it. His motion was extremely cute. Ning Xinyan stared blankly for a bit. Then he leaned over to mutter in his ear, "Good night, Xian, and I'm sorry." After he left, the room sounded an almost inaudible chuckle. Chapter 6. The summer morning sunshine was particularly brilliant. Zhou Yinsheng, standing in front of a French window, stretched his body. Then he washed his face, brushed his teeth, put on a set of casual clothes, and strolled downstairs. "Good morning. Did you sleep well last night?" Unexpectedly, Ning Xinyan greeted him in an unprecedented way. Sitting beside him, Ning Wangshu also looked at him with shining eyes. "Good morning. Did you enjoy your face slapping last night?" Zhou Yunsheng criticized in his heart. But the suffix espoused a humble, flattered expression. He nodded very slightly, then blushed, sitting in the farthest position. Ning Xinyan didn't rush to work today. Rather, he patiently fed his son Kanye, occasionally looking out from the corners of his eyes at the youth, whose head was buried. The guilty look turned into shyness, gloominess turned into melancholy, fragility. The feminine appearance that was represented in the past now felt exquisite. Smart, gentle, and agreeable. In short, why did today's Ning Xinyan look at Wei Xian and think cute? This was probably a true portrayal of suspecting someone of stealing an axe. Thinking of this, Ning Xinyan felt ashamed, his ears faintly reddening. At this time, Xiao Xingfang, wearing a lilac dress, came downstairs. Her face that had not been touched by makeup looked gentle and innocent. "Xingfang, last night, when Wang Ma woke up in the middle of the night for a drink of water, she fell down the stairs and broke her legs. Can you visit her in the hospital for me?" Ning Xinyan withdrew his side from the younger man and said in a warm voice, "Ah, she fell and broke her leg? Why didn't I hear any movement?" Xiao Xingfang was shocked. Zhou Yinsheng, with acting skills comparable to an Oscar-level actor, also exposed timely doubt. When she fell, her head hit the handrail and she fainted. This morning, Xiao Li found her when she got up to make breakfast. "It's been a tough few months. You have to accompany her in the hospital often. You know, she personally raised me. I've never seen her as just a nanny." Ning Xinyan reached out and rearranged a lock of hair on Xiao Xingfang's cheek to behind her ear. His attitude was intimate and gentle, but his dark eyes hid a faint, cold light. He was also an Oscar-level actor. Xiao Xingfang still had some doubts at first, but after hearing this, she immediately stopped dwelling on them.
She meekly promised on the surface, but her heart was extremely annoyed. That old bitch has never fallen before. Of all times, why did she need to fall now? How was her plan going to work now? Who was going to execute it? Did she really have to leave Wei Xian dangle under her nose for a few months? Xian Yu frequently went in and out of the Ning residence. She couldn't guarantee that one day Wei Xian wouldn't run into him again and get suspicious. Her heart was choking with resentment. Then she opened her mouth as if hesitating. Xinyan, what about the baby? After speaking, she glanced meaningfully at Wei Xian. Was this a vague reminder to deal with Wei Xian sooner? Ning Xinyan sneered in his heart, but revealed a helpless look on his face. My parents called me yesterday. They hired a doctor to help take care of the children. Dr. Chin Li. She should be here in a moment. Dr. Chin Li is the head of the Adolescent Mental Health Center. She has a lot of expertise in the psychological problems of teenagers. She'll care for the children, so they can quickly get better. Didn't this mean that he wasn't going to drive Wei Xian away? He was also intending to heal his psychological shadow. Damn old people, so noisy. Xiao Xingfang's heart was edgy, but she had no choice but to nod in agreement. After breakfast, Dr. Qin Li really arrived as planned. She was almost 60. Her tone was gentle, not urgent nor slow. Listening to it felt like bathing in a spring breeze. So she wasn't rejected by Ning Wangshu. Ning Xinyan and Qin Li talked for a long time in the study, nearly an hour, before he headed to the company for work. When Xiao Xingfang saw Qin Li bring Ning Wangshu to the studio to watch Wei Xiyan paint, she considered stopping them, but was afraid of making the other woman suspicious, and was also afraid of what the other woman said to Ning Xinyan in private. She had no choice but to pick up a bundle and go to the hospital to see Wang Ma. Wang Ma's 2 legs were wasted. This finally made her understand Ning Xinyan's true ruthlessness. How could she dare reveal anything in front of Xiao Xingfang? Xingfang, as you can see, my fall is really untimely. What to do about Wei Xian and Ning Wangshu? You want to do it yourself? That won't work. Xinyan sees me as a godmother. He would never doubt me if I do it. But you're different. You're a stepmother. If you do it yourself, Ning Wangshu will be able to show his fear of you to some extent, and after a while, Ning Xinyan will definitely suspect you. So just wait for me to be discharged. I'll help you do it. The money... All that rambling, isn't it all about the money? As the wise saying goes, money will make the devil turn millstones. Xiao Xingfang sneered in her heart, but she had no choice but to admit that Wang Ma was correct. If she personally abused Ning Wangshu, Ning Xinyan would surely suspect over time. She originally hadn't planned to deal with Ning Wangshu this early. It was just a coincidental opportunity. Forget it. That little bastard Ning Wangshu could wait until Wang Ma was discharged. She first needed to find a way to get rid of Wei Xian. Putting aside how Xiao Xingfang racked her brains to come up with a plan after she returned, Zhou Yunsheng and Ning Wangshu's relationship was becoming more and more intimate. Xin Li deserved to be called an expert in adolescent mental health. She didn't give the 2 children a heart-to-heart chat, nor deliberately brought them closer together. She just guided the 2 children to interact together more, letting them explore life's joys by themselves. While Ning Wangshu wrapped around Zhou Yuncheng, she simply moved over a rotten chair, sitting under some tree shade in the garden and enjoying the view, not excessively managing them, nor excessively questioning. This nanny was much more leisurely than Wang Ma.
Zhou Sheng was forced to be a villain by the Lord God, but that didn't mean that he was a bad guy in reality. Of course, after experiencing so many tragic deaths in his reincarnations, he was more or less a little abnormal, but it was really hard to be cold towards children. Whenever Ning Wangshu clung to his leg, staring up at him with big watery eyes, he could only silently sigh. Then he long-sufferingly helped him set up the board and held his little hand to teach him how to draw straight lines, curves, and circles. These basic things to adults, they seemed very boring, but Ning Wangshu was contrarily attentive, practicing over and over again to try and figure it out. Over time, Zhou Yunxiang unexpectedly found that he was very talented in painting and taught him more and more earnestly. Ning Xinyan recently developed a habit. Every lunch break, he liked to stare at the computer. The secretary delivered a cup of hot coffee to the office, saw him staring at the screen as usual, and quietly exited. However, at this moment, the computer screen wasn't showing the so-called stock market trends, futures contract prices, and other such business informations. Rather, it was two figures, one big, one small. The slender teenager encircled the small child in his arms, his big hand holding the child's small hand, painting on the canvas. Opposite the two was two apples and a banana, which was their source material for today. The youth gradually let go of the child's hand, letting him freely express his creativity, taking 2 steps back. He looked at the small child with a gentle and focused expression. After a long time, he picked up his palette and brush, quickly painting on his own white canvas, his gaze casting over the child from time to time. He used the oldest painting technique. Except for his thin splashes of color, no shape could be made out. Only he himself knew how amazing the painting would be after it was completed. He was gradually immersing himself into the wonderful world his mind had built when the child suddenly pulled his close. The hand holding the brush visibly stiffened, so the dab of color under his brush was a little heavier, but he didn't get angry, he just bent over to appreciate the child's scribbles. He didn't say anything, only rubbing the child's head to show approval. The child pursed his small mouth, revealing an excited expression. They were so quiet, serene, leisurely, and happy, even more warming than the sunshine spillings everywhere outside the window. Ning Xinyan had been staring in awe for a long time, unaware of how gentle and indulgent his expression was. Suddenly, the teenager, as if noticing something odd, unexpectedly looked directly at the camera. Ning Xinyan instantly stiffened in his leather chair. Only when the youth looked away indifferently did he find that he was so tense he had forgotten to breathe. He didn't find out, did he? Doubt streaked across his heart. He knew that his daily peeping behavior was really somewhat abnormal, but he couldn't control it. Just how he was amazed to find out that the young man had a pair of very beautiful peach blossom eyes. Even if he was poker-faced and not very eloquent, as long as he blinked those eyes and slowly looked over, his whole body seemed to glow with soul-moving luster. Ning Xinyan's heart jumped wildly. He couldn't help but light a cigar, blowing the smoke out at the screen. After a long time, his chaotic mood slowly calmed down, but he also felt a type of impression, as if he'd once sat in this same position, quietly watching the young man on the screen, feeling that the world was as it should be. Zhu Yunsheng knew that Ning Xinyan was still monitoring him, so he deliberately peered into the camera to give him a scare. He felt happy imagining the man holding his breath with a shocked face, in fear of being found. After carefully storing Ningguang Shu's first masterpiece, Zhou Yunsheng grabbed a pencil and sketchbook and took him outside to sketch nature. The studio was empty. For a long time no one showed up. Ning Xinyan felt like his heart was also empty. He quickly switched to the other surveillance views, but couldn't find the two people. He became somewhat anxious, immediately throwing away the cigar and calling Zhao Yun. They're sketching by the lake. It's a public green belt, so I didn't install a camera. If you want to see, you'll have to monitor the neighborhood. But, with all due respect, I feel that Mr. Wei has a normal mind, and his character is also very good. He won't harm Wang Shu. Jia Yun was standing near the two people, observing the surrounding environment while on the phone. Fix all the places Xian frequents with cameras. I want to see what they're doing anytime, anywhere. Ning Xinyan's tone was somewhat agitated. He paused for a few seconds before adding, I'm not suspecting Qian. I know he's a very good person. Covertly monitoring him through the screen, detailing his every move, every frown, every smile, Ning Xinan also knew that these actions were very abnormal. He couldn't quit. He also felt pretty helpless about it. Jia Yun was silent for a moment before he agreed, then he hung up. After an interval of 1 second, the phone rang again. The caller ID was still Boss. Boss, is there something else? I remember your house has also a monitor. Can it see Xian's movements? Yes, what's the problem? Do you want me to keep an eye on it? No, immediately remove it. And later, you're not allowed to monitor Xian. A moment of silence, then Ning Xinyan sternly added, You're also not allowed to listen to him. Yes, I understand. Zhang Yin hung up the phone, inwardly lamenting his boss's more and more indefinable thoughts.
Chapter 7. In the past, Ning Xinyan wouldn't go home until midnight. Now he packed his briefcase on time at 5:30. Looking at the approaching time, Xing Yi also quickly called the two children back. While walking back, Zhou Yunsheng discovered that Zhao Yun had installed many cameras in the lakeside trees and had no choice but to lament the other man's forced lackey status. How was your day? Ning Xinyan saw Qin Li off. When he came back into the house, he kissed his son's forehead. Then, extremely naturally, he also cupped the youth's cheeks and kissed, as if they would be so intimate from birth. Zhou Yunsheng was initially very surprised, but as the days passed, he also got used to it. He just pursed his lips and nodded slightly, but didn't reply. How was her day? Don't you already know? Damn pervert. Zhou Yunsheng heard the sounds and came downstairs. She attentively took Ning Xinyan's jacket and briefcase, and the two hugged each other with light smiles and whispers, as if they were a pair of sincere loving husband and wife. In this family, except for Ning Wangshu, everyone was an Oscar-level actor. After eating dinner and coaxing his son to sleep, Ning Xinyan wanted to find Wei Xian to chat for a while, in order to cultivate their feelings, but found that the other side had already slipped away. He also locked the bedroom door. If it wasn't for his previous misguided and vile attitude, Xian wouldn't be so afraid of him. Ning Xinyan agilely smoothed his hair. His heart was extremely regretful, and he also couldn't wait to swallow Xiao Xingfang whole. But Qian Yu still had exploitation value, so he had no choice but to pull the bow without shooting. The teenager took a picture album out of the bookcase and spread it on top of the bed. Sitting cross-legged, he browsed the book while taking notes. Ning Xinyan smiled, watching attentively for a while. Then he saw that the time was still early, so he also turned on the computer to deal with official business. Unknowingly, 10:30 arrived. The cell phone issued a slight beep to remind the busy Ning Xinyan. Ning Xinyan turned off the alarm and quickly glanced at the screen. Sure enough, the youth, who always kept to schedule, was
stripping, preparing to take a hot bath and go to bed. His white shirt slid down his shoulders. He turned, revealing a graceful butterfly bone, flexible waist, and very perky buttocks. Ningxinyan only glanced for a moment before looking away, suddenly feeling somewhat restless. He stood up, poured a cup of coffee, and walked 2 laps around the study room, listening to the sound of trickling water as the youth took a bath. He felt more and more edgy, tearing open the top 2 buttons of his shirt, and finally carrying the coffee cup slowly back to the desk. His eyes stuck to the screen. He had no choice but to admit that he was looking forward to this time almost every day. What was the difference between his practice and being a pervert? He denounced himself in his heart, but also couldn't control himself. He put down the coffee cup, then pulled out a cigarette and lit it, trying to make the smoke blur his line of sight. But his move was obviously superfluous. The steam from the hot water in the bathroom had long ago misted the camera, leaving only a jade-like silhouette. Ningxinyan started feeling unsatisfied again, inwardly cursing. When the sound of running water finally stopped, his cigarette was also finished. Due to being too focused on the screen, his finished cigarette butt almost burned his fingertips. He uttered several curses and ruthlessly poked the butt into the ashtray. The bathroom door opened. The youth walked out with wet hair, wearing only a loose white shirt that barely slipped over his hips, covering his most secret places, but revealing his slender, straight legs. His feet were delicate, perfectly shaped, as he stepped on the wool carpet. He slightly hooked his toes. His action was extremely cute. Because he stayed in the studio all year round, his skin was very white. The light blue blood vessels could almost be seen through his thin skin. Because of this, he appeared even more soft and fragile. This was the last time. Tomorrow, he'll remove all the cameras. Holding the coffee cup, Ningxinyan customarily placated himself. Then he completely abandoned the struggle, gazing greedily. Suddenly, a sharp knock sounded on the door. It was Xiao Yun. Ningxinyan's hand shook, half the cup of coffee falling on his shirt and pants. Shit, he immediately stood up, wiping with a paper towel, but found a very hard place at his groin. Shit. He stared blankly, then fiercely cursed himself, forcefully shoving back his hair. He knew it. If he continued like this, he would sooner or later go astray. But he was powerless against his perverted self. Come in. He sat down, his expression decrepit, his voice depressed. In his moment of panic, the young man on the screen quickly hooked the corners of his mouth and silently murmured, "Good night, damn pervert." 2 months of summer vacation soon ended. Ningxinyan lived in struggle every day, feeling both physically and mentally exhausted. Maybe I should think of a way to stay away from Wei Xian, he told himself. It didn't take long for his thought to smack him in the face. "Why are you packed?" When he saw the boy carrying a trolley bag downstairs with a preparing to go on a long journey look, his complexion instantly changed. "Live in the dormitory." Zhou Yunsheng hid the luggage behind his back, his demeanor somewhat uncomfortable. Ning Qinyan coughed, then immediately using a softer tone, How long till you come back?" "I'll come back for winter vacation." Winter vacation. In other words, at least 3 or 4 months until he came back. Ning Xinyan's mind buzzed. He refuted in a firm voice. No, living in a dormitory is not allowed. He had long forgotten his determination to alienate Wei Xian. "You're addicted, aren't you, damn pervert?" Zhou Yunsheng inwardly sneered at him, but he showed a frightened but wronged expression on the surface, his pair of watery peach blossom eyes staring at Ning Xinyan. Under the light of the young man's gaze, half of Ning Qinyan's body had completely numbed. His ears involuntarily flowed red, but Ning Xinyan's expression became even more solemn, finally saying, "No, your self-care ability is too poor. Once you start painting, you never stop. You even forget to eat 3 meals a day. It's better if you live at home. I'll be responsible for dropping you off and picking you up at school every day. Otherwise, I can't be at ease." Zhou Yunsheng was sitting in the farthest corner from him, staring at his breakfast silently. His temperament was really stubborn. Ning Xinyan had no other means to persuade him. He had no choice but to look at his son. "Baby, your Xiaoshu has to go to school. He won't come back to see you for 3 or 4 months. Will you miss him?" Ning Wangshu finally realized the seriousness of the problem. He immediately jumped off his chair and thump, 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 ran to Zhou Yunsheng's side. His two small hands firmly gripped his pants legs, wearing a sad, about to cry expression. "That pervert, even using your own son." Zhou Yunsheng almost wanted to facepalm, but he endured. "If I won't live in school, I need to handle the procedure to become a day student," he spoke slowly. "Good, I'll bring you to fill out the forms in a moment." Ning Xinyan was finally satisfied. Seizing the opportunity, he walked over to sit beside the young man, picking up his son and happily kissing him. "Good son, you really helped your father out." Wearing an apron, Zhao Xingfang was in the kitchen, putting on an act of preparing cognac. Hearing these movements, her face darkened. And these past 2 months, not only had Ning Wangshu started returning to normal, even Ning Xinyan's attitude towards Wei Xiyan had undergone monumental changes. When Wei Xiyan first arrived, Ning Xinyan regarded him as an invisible person, but now he was pampering him like a precious child. What the hell was going on? Now, no way did he forget how Wei Xiyan treated Ning Wangshu, right? Or maybe he found out the truth? Impossible. If he knew the truth, how could he provide delicious food and drink for Wang Ma and take out time to visit the hospital every day to personally take care of her? Certainly, those old fools must be insisting on protecting Wei Xiyan, and he had no other choice. Now that their relationship was getting better and better, Wei Xiyan brought up the day at the hotel entrance during the next chat. What could she do? No, she must get rid of Wei Xiyan as quickly as possible. Xiao Xingfang's eyeballs turned. She thought of a wonderful idea. Wei Xiyan was a first-year student in the capital's Academy of Fine Arts. He hadn't participated in the college entrance examination. Ning father entrusted a famous oil painter in F country to write a letter of introduction for him, and he was especially recruited. Ning Xinyan let an assistant handle the day student procedures, while he personally went to the dormitory to help Wei Xiyan pack up. "I'll do it. You sit." He took off his suit jacket, rolled up his sleeves, and stacked up a few huge picture albums, preparing to carry them out. As the male protagonist, Ning Xinyan's appearance was naturally very outstanding. Not impeccably handsome like Du Shulang, but full of heroic masculine atmosphere. He was almost 190 centimeters tall, his pair of big, long legs shifting in front of Zhou Yunsheng, making him feel dizzy. His thin shirt was even vividly sketching out his explosive muscle lines. The man was mobile hormones. Zhou Yunsheng was distinctly aware of this fact, and had no choice but to look elsewhere. "Is it hot? Look at your face, it's all red. Living at home really is more comfortable. Home has air conditioning." The youth's cheeks were flushed, eyes glittering. Seeing this appearance, Ning Xinyan's mouth dried out. Using this observation as an opportunity, he walked over to pinch the tip of the boy's nose. Zhou Yunsheng lowered his eyes and nodded. His shy appearance made Ning Xinyan's heart itch intolerably. He packed the albums and paintbrushes into a cardboard box, one hand holding the box, the other hand dragging along the teenager. Ning Xinyan slowly walked back towards the parking lot. Xian, did you come to report in? When Ning Xinyan opened the trunk to pack the things, Zhou Yunsheng heard a shout. He looked towards the man walking up to him, and a malicious smile instantly seeped into his eyes. He knew this person. He was Wei Xian's senior, Fu Xuan. After Wei Xian left the Ning family house, he once got an opportunity to pull himself together, but he was destroyed by this person. He plagiarized Wei Xian's painting and participated in the International Oil Painting Awards ceremony. In the end, he received a grand prize and became famous in one go. This event was the last straw that crushed Wei Xian. Zhou Yunsheng squinted, then walked up to greet him, respectfully calling out, "Senior brother." When Fu Xuan learned that he was going to become a day student, he pulled him aside to tell him a few words. Of course, it was about whether he'd completed his work for the awards ceremony, and encouraging him to show it to him if he wasn't satisfied with anything, so he could give him some advice. Zhou Yunsheng nodded, but didn't converse. Fu Xuan saw a man parked by the roadside in the distance, staring at him while smoking, his eyes a little ruthless. Fu Xuan felt a little afraid and couldn't help but find an excuse to leave first. "Who is he?" Ning Xinyan sternly asked after they got into the car. "Senior brother." Zhou Yunsheng blinked his watery peach blossom eyes over at him. Ning Xinyan's bitterness evaporated, but he still muttered, "He's really chatty." Zhu Yunsheng was choked by the smell of cigarette smoke in the car. Uncomfortably, he couldn't help but frown. "Put out the smoke." Ning Xinyan immediately snuffed out the cigarette, then raised his hands in a surrendered gesture. This skillful and natural reaction shocked both people. Zhu Yunsheng stared at him for a long time, striving to find a trace of familiarity in his handsome face. It was fruitless. On the way back, the two fell into a strange silence. Chapter 8. Du Sulang was only a string of data compiled by the Lord God. He wasn't like himself, an immortal soul. How could he possibly follow him? Smoking was very normal, and their similar habits were also very normal. Zhou Yunsheng convinced himself like this, but the bitterness in his heart was unspeakable. But it wasn't long before he didn't have the time to tangle with the other things. Fu Xuan called him and repeatedly urged him to quickly hand over his awards ceremony oil painting. His tone carried too much eagerness to completely conceal. Fu Xuan was considered to be the big shot of the oil painting department. His background was very strong. His father was the president of Sea Country's Painting and Calligraphy Association, and his mother was an international renowned oil painter, an expert in landscape painting. Her masterpiece, Wheat Wave, sold for the sky-high price of 7.5 million in the Jiadeli auction house. From childhood, Fu Xuan inherited his parents' fine genes. At the age of 6, he held his own personal art exhibition. In terms of painting, he was more gifted than anyone else. But examples of a pitiful Shongyong wasn't uncommon. Unfortunately, Fu Xuan was included among the very typical types. As a result of premature success, he grew conceited. Coupled with his flock of followers, he gradually lost his ambition. Not only did he not industriously practice his painting skills, he became addicted to eating, drinking, and merriment. Painting skills needed to be polished. After ignoring the brush for long periods, inspiration and skill would dry up along with the passage of time. When Fu Xuan found himself standing in front of a canvas, no longer able to even draw a straight line, he finally panicked. But his response wasn't to force himself to pick up the brush, but to hire proxies. Whenever the instructor arranged homework or requested artwork, he would let others do it in his place. The oil painting department didn't lack for talented but impoverished students. Fuxuan would find the most close-lipped students. One paid, one worked hard, convenient for both sides. Unexpectedly, he smoothly drifted along until senior year, and even became one of the best students in the teacher's eyes. But this international oil painting award ceremony was only held once every 5 years. It was one of the most important competitions in the art world. Fuxuan's proxies also had access to one entry. They wanted to take this opportunity to become famous in one go, so they naturally rejected him. Fuxuan had no way out, but after thinking hard, Wei Xiyan popped into his head. Wei Xiyan's character was withdrawn, actions low-key, and he rarely interacted with his classmates. Fuxuan naturally didn't know his family background, merely regarding him as a friendless orphan, so he plagiarized his painting in its entirety. That painting was the result of Wei Xiyan venting about his abandonment by the Ning family. He'd poured out all of his unwillingness, pain, longing, and sadness, breaking away from his usual smooth style, perfectly blending the beauty of classicalism and the unrestrained nature of abstraction together. It was very stunning. With this masterpiece, Wei Xian had the opportunity to become one of the most outstanding oil painters, but unexpectedly, Fu Xuan stole his achievements and even took him to court for copyright infringement. Wei Xian, who was driven out of the Ning family, naturally couldn't fight back. He had no choice but to settle out of court with Fu Xuan and promised to forever quit the oil painting industry. Wei Xian, who could no longer pick up his beloved paintbrush, obviously suffered great pain and lost his will to live. Now, Zhou Yunsheng was a day student. He only painted in the Ning residence art studio, not with his fellow students, making it difficult for Xuan to plagiarize. Seeing that the time limit for work submission was getting closer, he was finally uneasy, calling constantly, even lying to Zhou Yunsheng, saying that the instructor put him in charge of collecting the junior students' submissions. Zhou Yunsheng promised to hand it in, then hung up, his eyes darkening slightly. He carefully scrutinized the work on the aisle, modified a few places where he wasn't satisfied, and took it to Ning Xinyan's study after it dried. It was the weekend, so Ning Xinyan was working from home. He earnestly examined the thick file, glancing at the monitor every 10 minutes or so. Seeing that the boy was standing at the artboard and painting as usual, his heart felt extremely steady. The youth wouldn't go anywhere. He would always stand in place, waiting for him. The thought came suddenly, but it made him feel even more delighted. When he returned from his thoughts, the studio was already empty, and a familiar anxious feeling bubbled up in his heart. If such a thing happened while he was at the company, he would have immediately called to make Zhao Yun find him. But today was his day off. He decided to do it himself. Just as he put down the file, the door was knocked. Ning Xinyan impatiently asked, "Who?" "It's me." The youth's voice was crisp and sweet. Ning Xinyan instantly stiffened. After he snapped out of it, he immediately shut off the monitor above the computer, fixed the messy folders, and quickly walked towards the door. He stopped before reaching the door to fix his hair in the glass door of the bookcase. After verifying that he was very handsome, he smiled and opened the door. "Xian, come in." He naturally grabbed the youth's snow-white wrist and pulled him to the double sofa. He thought about pouring him a cup of coffee, but somehow felt that this drink wasn't right, so he ran downstairs to the kitchen to pour a glass of milk. After heating it up, he carefully carried it back up. Zhou Yunsheng felt extremely comfortable being waited upon by him.
But he put on a very flattered expression, red cheeks accompanied by a pair of clear and moist peach blossom eyes. Fan Wei Ning Xinyan almost lost control. Pressing down the agitation in his heart, Ning Xinyan sat next to the youth and softly asked, Xian, do you have something to tell me? If it was inconsequential, the youth would never take the initiative to get close to him. Yes, Zhu Yinsheng glanced at him timidly, saying quiet with pursed rosy thin lips, I want to participate in the oil painting awards ceremony. Oil painting awards ceremony? I know about that. Did you not get an entry? I'll immediately call to get you one, directly into the finals. This was a great opportunity to display his earnesty. How could Ning Xinyan pass it up? Before he finished talking, his hand was already dialing a string of numbers about to press call. Ning Group was the largest sponsor of this grand art event. Getting a spot in the finals was very easy. No, not that. Zhou Yunsheng quickly grabbed his arm, his little face flushing anxiously. I already have an entry. Ning Xinyan seized the opportunity to pull him into his arms. Restraining his excitement while stroking his soft hair, he asked, Then why did you find me? Damn pervert, your sexual harassment skills simply can't be improved any further. Zhou Yunsheng secretly clenched his teeth, lowering his head as he vaguely said, Can I send this picture in for a review? At this, Ning Xinyan finally noticed the 22 by 14 frame at his feet. He lifted the protective cover and Ning Wangshu's small round face appeared, looking extra chubby. The small child was squatting on the ground, wearing a very large white shirt, sleeves rolled up high. He was raising his two fat little hands to let the painter see his paint-stained palms. At his feet was a canvas stamped with little handprints. In his eyes it was obviously a masterpiece, so he was smiling brilliantly. Even the sunshine spotting the background wasn't comparable. The painter's wholehearted love and tenderness was engraved in each brush stroke. The warm hue almost occupied the entire canvas. Hope, joy, tranquility, closely packed vitality and happiness assaulted the senses when the canvas was uncovered. Ning Xinyan stared in awe. He almost forgot the last time he saw his son's smiling face. Can I bring this picture to the review? Zhou Yunsheng gently touched his arm. At this, Ning Xinyan snapped out of it, blinking away his acrid eyes. Of course you can. He was silent for a moment, then added, Someday, can you draw a portrait of me too? He never admitted that he was jealous of his son. Sure, Zhou Yunsheng nodded, carefully placing the protective cover back on the frame. When Fu Xuan saw Zhou Yunsheng walk over to hand in the painting, it looked like he was seeing his savior. After he lifted the canvas cover, he scrutinized it for a long time. Learning that the child in the painting was only imaginary, he finally let out a relieved breath. He knew that the painting would stand out. It was too smart, full of charm and emotion, painstakingly painted out of love. His eyes couldn't hide his greed. Seeing this, Zhou Yunsheng knew that he had already jumped into the snare. When he returned home, Ning Wangshu was taking a nap. Zhou Yunsheng tucked him in, kissed his rosy little cheeks, and whispered, I'm sorry for taking advantage of you, but I'll stay with you and protect you for a lifetime, until you're old. After he quietly returned to his room, Ning Xinyan called to interrogate him about his whereabouts for the day, including who he met, what he talked about, what he did, and so on. His increasingly intense desire for control and possessiveness made Zhou Yunsheng not know whether to laugh or cry. Xian, are you in there? Xiao Xingfang yelled outside the door. Zhou Yunsheng hung up and quickly changed into home clothes. Then he pulled open the door and quietly looked at her. Xiao Xingfang had on light makeup, highlighting her pair of large and bright almond eyes. Although it was already autumn, she was wearing a pure white slip dress. Her deliberately lowered neckline couldn't cover up her deep cleavage, and her pair of slender white legs were slightly gathered together in a sexy pose, making her womanly figure even more enchanting. Are you preparing to seduce me? Pull me into the marsh of adultery? A thin light flashed across Zhou Yunsheng's eyes. Xiao Xingfang saw that the boy was obviously trying to avoid her gaze, and her heart was quite proud. She was very knowledgeable about men's weaknesses, and her methods were shrewd and efficient. Even a master womanizer like Ning Xinyan could be wrangled, not to mention Wei Xian, this innocent youth. Orphaned and closed-off children like Wei Xian were most thirsty for maternal warmth. As long as she gave him a smile and said a few endearing words, he would submissively allow her to make unlimited demands. Wei Xian's parents left him a huge inheritance. Although it couldn't be compared with Ning Group, it was enough for an ordinary person to eat and drink endlessly, enjoying a few lifetimes. Zhao Xingfang pondered for a long time, then finally decided to turn Wei Xian into a love slave for her own use. Not only women, men also never forget their first love. Zhao Xingfang was planning to become Wei Xian's first. Sister-in-law, do you need something? Zhou Yunsheng was forced to retreat into a corner by Xiao Xingfang. The top and left of the bookcases each had a surveillance camera. The scene would be very clear and also a close-up view. Xiao Xingfang was totally unaware. Her hands were propped on the wall on both sides of the boy's cheek. Her full chest was rubbing lightly against him, her voice languid and flirtatious. I feel uncomfortable, so I wanted to chat with you a bit. Your brother's away from home most of the time. I'm very lonely. Zhou Yunsheng firmly held his breath, reddening his cheeks. Then he shrunk his neck and ducked under Xiao Xingfang's armpit. What are you afraid of? Afraid I'll eat you? Xiao Xingfang was amused. She grabbed him back and pinched his jaw, kissing him. This kiss was very short, because 2 seconds later the teenager violently struggled and pushed her away. He burst into tears and ran straight into the bathroom. Facing the toilet bowl, he started vomiting endlessly. Even bile was soon vomited out. Damn it, this was why he would never like women. The bathroom ceiling was equipped with a camera, quietly shooting the scene. Xiao Xingfang's complexion fluctuated. Even if she was beaten to death, she would have never anticipated this reaction. Shouldn't normal people push her to the ground to do whatever they wanted? She was embarrassed, livid, but mostly panicked. She retreated to the door and fiercely threatened, Wei Xian, if you dare tell Xinyan what happened today, I tell him you intended to rape me. I'm his wife. You're just a bastard of unknown origin. Who do you think he'll choose to believe? The teenager stiffened, then lay on a toilet bowl, shivering. He seemed to be terrified and weeping. A long time after Xiao Xingfang left, he slowly looked up, revealing an extremely pale face and very red eyes. Chapter 9. The coffee cup brushed past the department head's face and smashed into the office door. It made a loud crack, and shattered porcelain pieces left a mark on the expensive furniture. The department head was dumbstruck. After a few seconds, he slowly raised his hand to his forehead to wipe his cold sweat, trembling as he asked, Boss, was there a problem with the prospectus? Even if there was a problem, it shouldn't cause such immense rage. It was as if someone killed his whole family. Ning Xinyan was staring at the computer screen, his face ashen, his chest undilating. He was clearly raging violently inside. He coldly glanced at the department head and waved his hand. The department head hurried out of his office as if he'd received amnesty. On the computer screen, the boy was brushing his teeth. This was already the 5th time. The foam he spit out had visible blood. Ning Qinyan's tongue also tasted a trace of blood. He was itching to devour Xiao Xingfang. But now wasn't the time. He had just thrown out bait for Qian Yu. The other man was now on his way to the Ning residence. He picked up the phone to call Xiao Yun to make him stop the boy before he brushed his gums rotten. when he saw his sleepy-eyed son wearing a pair of large slippers stomp, stomp, stomp his way to the boy's side. Xiaoshu, can we go paint right? He tucked the youth's trouser legs. Even if he even if he felt extremely uncomfortable, the youth still quickly fixed his mood, spit out the rest of the foam, and dried his mouth, pretending as if nothing had happened. He led his son to the studio. He was clearly absent-minded when standing in front of the artboard. His brush didn't move for a long time. Ning Xinyan stared at him until his eyes dried out and turned red. Only then did he fiercely shut his eyes. A few sinister words were squeezed out between clenched teeth. Xiao Xing Fang, how dare you? Due to his employer's urging, Tian Yu desperately wanted to get his hands on the bidding document. Just as he stepped into the Ning residence, he was resolutely pushed into the study. The door was slammed shut and a warm body covered him. Tian Yu simply stared blankly for a moment before he turned from passive recipient to active giver, wantonly rubbing and groping the other party. After an enthusiastic battle session on the sofa, Xiao Xingfang still wanted to pull Tian Yu for another round on the desk, but was rejected. Why are you so hungry? Ning Xinyan doesn't let you eat your fill. I can't do it again. If the time drags on any longer, I fear we'll be discovered. He hasn't touched me in months. Does he have someone outside? Who is it? I haven't heard anything. Maybe your charm has faded. Let it fade. Anyways, he only married me to help raise his kid. Why the hell didn't he just marry a nanny? What nanny could be prettier than you? Could have a better figure than you? Could be wilder than you? They talked and kissed for a while, then finally separated with great difficulty. Tian Yu arranged his clothes as he skillfully turned on the computer and entered the password, transferring out a copy of a confidential file. After I'm done with this cell, I'll immediately go abroad to lie low. Help me monitor Ning Xinyan. Call me if there's any movement. When I get settled later, you'll ultimately benefit. After he collected the USB drive, Tian Yu fondled Xiao Xingfang's full chest before rushing out. Ning Xinyan stared at the messy study, suddenly feeling his stomach somersault. Tian Yu's file copy had a significant error in the data. If he sold it to the other companies, they would face billions in losses. Ning Xinyan just had to wait to hit them while they were down and carve up the goods. He forced himself to continue handling business, but no matter how much he tried, he couldn't sit still, transferring to the civilian's monitor every few minutes to look at the boy's state. Finally, at 5:30, he immediately tidied up his documents and went home. Tin Li had brought Ning Wangshu to the lakeside to feed the ducks. The youth wasn't in sight. Ning Xinyan called out a greeting, then hurriedly entered the house to find him. What are you doing? His voice was very stern, but if you listened carefully, you could sense a slight trembling. Zhou Sheng paused slightly, then he continued packing. In accordance with Wei Xiyan's character, after such a thing happened, he certainly wouldn't dare tell Ning Xinyan, and he even more wouldn't dare to stay in Ning residence. Although Zhou Sheng was merely putting on an act, he needed to give Ning Xinyan some pressure to force him to deal with that woman as soon as possible. Having said that, Ning Xinyan was really too easy to use. Zhou Yunsheng just had to blink a few times and pout, and he would help him settle everything. Please stop and listen to me. Ning Xinyan restlessly slapped the clothes out of the youth's hands. Seeing him widen his eyes, apparently frightened, he quickly hugged him and apologized. Xiyan, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to scare you. I just didn't want you to leave. What happened today? Talk to me. Zhou Sheng just slightly shook his head without a word. Ning Xinyan didn't dare force him. His heart felt extremely uncomfortable, like it was immersed in a deep fryer. He recalled Xiao Xingfang's forced kiss, and his eyes gradually reddened in wrath. Why? Why would he only hide in a dark corner quietly watching the boy, while others could approach him unscrupulously, even forcing a kiss on him? Why? The repressed anger in his heart burned out his reason. He pinched the boy's jaw and desperately, repeatedly wiped his thin lips with his fingers. Zhou Chang frowned in pain. Just as he wanted to lean away, the other man bent over, suddenly kissing him, leaving no room for words. His tongue pushed past his teeth and explored deep into his throat with fierce strength, like he wanted to swallow him whole. Saliva leaked out from between their giant lips, forming a silver thread. After a very long time, just when Zhou Sheng was almost unable to breathe, Ning Xinyan reluctantly ended the kiss, but he didn't pull back. Their lips were still touching, his fingers locking Zhou Sheng's jaw in place. His eyes gazing into his, he asked in a husky voice, "Tell me, what do you feel right now?" "I want to fuck you." Zhu Sheng's eyes flashed, but he remained silent. "Tell me, hurry." Ning Xinyan's fingers slowly tightened up, leaving a few purple marks on the youth's fair jaw. Zhu Sheng endured the pain, slowly saying in a timid voice, "I'm afraid. Afraid you won't do it, damn pervert." The man was extremely close. His burning hot breath radiated a strong taste of male hormones, almost making Zhu Sheng's mind swoon. He liked strong men like Ning Xinyan. The other side's intense possessiveness and wild action made him excited, and that kiss was excellent, completely washing away the nauseating feeling Zhao Xingfang left behind. He almost wanted to hug Ning Xinyan and say thank you. Ning Xinyan was panting roughly, his voice increasingly hoarse. "Besides fear, what else are your feelings?" Zhou Yunsheng dropped his eyes, his cheeks slowly flushing, his dark eyes soaked in light tears. He looked radiant and moving. Seeing this, Ning Xinyan forgot how to breathe, his mind repeatedly echoing a thought. "He's embarrassed. He didn't find it disgusting. He has also feelings for me." After becoming aware of this, he was like a backpacker clinging to the edge of a cliff after an accident, finally being rescued. The ecstasy and excitement scored his heart over and over again. His taut nerves finally relaxed. His stern eyes melted, filling up with deep and heavy love. "Xian, Xian, Xian," he repeatedly called the boy's name, sealing his already swollen lips with kisses. He murmured, "Xian, baby, I love you. I love you so much. Can you understand? Can you sense it?" Zhen Cheng was lying on his violently undulating chest. He nodded almost imperceptibly. The room was filled with a romantic sucking sound. Since his relationship with Nang Xinyan came to pass, regardless of what happened after the female lead appeared, Zhu Yuncheng didn't care. He only lived in the moment, only cherished the moment. 1 month later, the capital's Academy of Fine Arts received news that one of the 5 works sent into this session of the competition made it into the finals and would be eligible to compete for the highest award. In this kind of grand art event, every speck of interest felt like being plated in gold, not to mention having your work evaluated by art masters from around the world. This was simply an incredible honor. The notification letter not only had the full name of the person of honor printed on it, a photo of the work was also attached. The oil painting department students were scrambling to take a look. "This is my work. Why is it signed by senior brother?" Zhu Yunsheng paled. Everyone was silent. Professor Tang Wei-ming, the CO academic advisor, gave him a harsh look. "This was obviously personally painted by Fu Xuan. I watched him complete it, stroke by stroke. Why do you say it's yours? What evidence do you have?" Tang Wei-ming naturally knew who really painted this painting, but he received benefits from Fu Xuan, so he could only feel sorry for Wei Xian. The world wasn't as pure and unpretentious as outsiders imagined. This was something Wei Xian needed to learn sooner or later. "Yes, share a studio with Fu Xuan Sr. We personally watched him paint it. A few students echoed in agreement. Apparently, Fuxuan had prepared well in advance. Fuxuan took back the notification letter and patted So Yun Cheng's shoulder, laughing. Junior brother, you must speak with evidence, or I can sue you for slander. Zhou Yunsheng seemed to be intimidated by his threat, his face paling to transparency. He stared at Tang Wei Ming until the other man looked away in embarrassment. Then he looked at the students who gave false testimony before slowly walking away. Fu Xuan sighed in relief, knowing that he was an orphan who couldn't make any waves. He invited the other students out to eat, and everyone cheered excitedly, noisily walking over to the school gate. Zhou Yunsheng went to a secluded corner, rubbed his eyes, cleared his throat, and made a phone call. The thick, nasally voice on the phone almost made Ning Xinyan jump in fright. He asked anxiously, "What's wrong, baby? Did something happen? Don't be afraid. I'm here. Tell me where you are. I'll come right away." Zhou Yunsheng hoarsely said, "I'm in school. I'm very upset right now." Ning Xinyan pacified him while heading down to the car. By the time he hung up, he was already on the road. Zhou Yunsheng was not incapable of handling Fu Xuan, but he was now Wei Xian. Wei Xian's world only had painting, none of these dirty things. So from the beginning, he'd planned to have Ning Xinyan solve all his problems for him. This was also Ning Xinyan's debt to Wei Xian. He needed to pay it back sooner or later. As for Ning Xinyan's emotional changes, that was purely accidental. Poor Fu Xuan had no idea he'd provoked such a formidable character. Seeing the secretly red-eyed teenager hiding in the corner, Ning Xinyan was homicidal angry. He reluctantly pressed down his anxiousness and coaxingly persuaded him to tell the truth. Then he immediately took him to the dean's office to complain. The dean didn't dare neglect, quickly calling in Fu Xuan, Tang Wei Ming, and the others. Seeing the crowd walk in a line with a very arrogant atmosphere, Zhou Yunsheng pretended to be scared, shrinking into Ning Xinyan's arms, secretly grabbing his clothes. This movement provoked Ning Xinyan's anger to come out even more, but he embraced him deeply, very gently, and patted his back softly, reassuring him to not be afraid. Tang Wei Ming and the others naturally knew Ning Xinyan, whose handsome face occupied the front page of financial magazines all year round. After seeing the two's intimate action, a bad premonition suddenly rose in their heads. Ning Xinyan also didn't say any superfluous words. He took out his cell phone and said, "This painting, called Bride, is something I personally watched Xian complete. But for some reason, this Fu Xuan name is signed on it. I came here today to ask for clarification on this matter. To avoid unnecessary misunderstandings in the future, may I record this conversation?" Not agreeing right away was equivalent to admitting to harboring ulterior motives. Fu Xuan believed that they all had good covers, so he recorded or not recorded. It was no big deal, so he nodded in agreement. Tang Wei Ming asked, trembling in fear, "Excuse me, may I ask, Mr. Ning, what is your relationship with Wei Xian? How is my and Xian's relationship any of your business?" Ning Xinyan sneered, then turned to Fu Xuan and asked, "When and where did you finish this painting? Who's the child in the picture?" "I started painting from the beginning of September and finished at the end of October. I painted it entirely in the school studio. The junior brothers who share the studio can testify. The person in the painting doesn't exist in reality. I painted him while thinking about my possible future child. What sort of appearance would they have? Would they inherit my painting talent? Using the longing and love in my heart, I rendered this child's face on the canvas, brush stroke by brush stroke." As a result of his guilty consciousness, Fu Xuan endlessly babbled about his feelings during the creation process. The junior brothers receiving benefits from him frequently nodded and echoed along. Even Tang Wei Ming also corroborated with a few words.
Zhou Yunsheng started painting this painting late July and completed it at the end of September. The whole painting process was faithfully recorded on Ning Xinyan's monitoring tools. Moreover, he painted Ning Wangshu. Just this infringement of birthright rights was enough to sue Fu Xuan to bankruptcy. Now, because of his guilty consciousness, the more Fu Xuan said, the more inconsistencies came out, and it was all recorded by Ning Xinyan. If he later tried to retract his testimony, it would be impossible. He'd really dug his own grave. Ning Xinyan didn't interrupt him. When the other man finished rambling, he asked Tang Wei Ming several questions. After fully collecting the incriminating evidence, he held the youth's hand and nodded towards the dean. Presently, I'm leaving first. This matter will be sent to my lawyer to deal with. I hope a similar situation will not appear in your school in the future. Of course, Mr. Ling, please watch your step. The dean respectfully guided the two people to the door, then turned back and stared at Fu Xuan for a while. In the end, he shook his head and said, Hurry back home and have your parents help you find the best lawyer. If you're lucky, you can still fight to settle out of court. Dean, why should I fight for out-of-court settlement? That painting was personally drawn by me. So many people can testify. Fu Xuan refused to relent. Drawn by you personally? You can draw Mr. Ning's son, who's several hundred miles away? What imagined future child? When I saw these words, I can't help but feel embarrassed for you. As the dean's voice faded, Tang Wei Ming, who'd always felt an ominous premonition, saw darkness before his eyes. Those students who'd committed perjury started madly cold sweating. Fu Xuan cried out in fear. How is that possible? Wei Xian obviously told me that the child was imaginary. The dean confirmed that everything was true, so he unceremoniously threw everyone out of his office. After today, all these people present would probably be destroyed. It may be said that they had no futures. After Fu Xuan went home, he told this matter to his parents, but his parents were completely incapable of fighting with Ning Group. Although the trial wasn't public, in order to protect Ning Wangshu from the media's wanton reporting, the Fu family's reputation in the calligraphy and painting industry was ruined. After paying a huge amount of compensation, they went abroad to keep a distance, henceforth disappearing into obscurity. Tang Wei Ming and the several students who'd perjured themselves for Fu family all successively quit the oil painting circle, dejected throughout their lifetimes. On their way home, Zhou Yunsheng timidly spoke. He has so many witnesses, but we only the baby. Will we lose the lawsuit? How is that possible? Our evidence is very full. Ning Xinyan caressed the teenager's soft hair. What evidence? Zhou Yunsheng blinked a pair of big innocent eyes. Ning Xinyan broke into cold sweat, laughing. Don't worry. I said there's evidence, so there's evidence. Please don't worry about the trial. I'll take care of it. Do you have any other paintings? Give me one. I'll fix your entry in the contest. Zhou Yunsheng finally nodded after fully enjoying his previous look. I have a painting that's about the same level as Bride. Help me send it in. Oh, right. Can the trial not be public? I'm afraid the baby's life will be affected. The media would certainly dig into the story behind the painting. Ning Wangshu would inevitably enter the public's eye. He was so small, receiving so much attention really wasn't a good thing. Although Zhou Yunsheng had the absolute strength to completely protect him, he still felt guilty about using his portrait. Ning Xinyan didn't know the inside story. Seeing him regarding his son as his own child, loving him dearly, his heart softened incomparably, and he pulled him into a gentle kiss. They looked at each other and smiled, full of tenderness. At home, Zhou Yunsheng took Ning Wangshu to the lake to sketch. Ning Xinyan left to call the Ning Group's lawyer. This kind of civil case was simply a piece of cake to the country's top law firm. The other side repeatedly guaranteed the defendant would pay the most painful price. Then he hung up. Ning Xinyan lit a cigarette and stood by the window, gazing at the big one and small one painting side by side. Just then, a travel-worn Xiao Xingfang pushed open the door and entered, pinching a credit card. Xinyan, why are my credit cards all frozen? Ning Xinyan turned around and said in a very gentle tone, Xingfang, come see this. Xiao Xingfang walked over and bent down to look at the computer screen. Ning Xinyan clicked the play button, and and moaning sounds instantly filled the room. Two white bodies were joining together in a variety of difficult positions. The scene was extremely obscene. Xiao Xingfang's face instantly paled. She staggered 2 steps, speaking incoherently. Xinyan, it wasn't intentionally. No, no, I was forced. Xinyan, please don't. Ning Xinyan ignored her and picked up the phone. About 10 minutes later, several policemen stepped in and arrested Xiao Xingfang for fraud, theft, and infringement of commercial secrets. Because the amount involved was too large, Xiao Xingfang would be convicted with the highest sentence and would have to pay an astronomical compensation to Ning Group. At the same time, the judge lifted the marriage between the two. As for Xian Yu, as early as a month ago, he'd committed suicide to escape punishment. 3 years later, Dr. Qin Li retired and Ning Xinyan decided to find another nanny to take care of his child and his lover. There was nothing he could do. Both of them were painting otakus. Once they entered the studio, everything was forgotten. If no one was nearby to supervise, they would probably starve themselves to death. This was also the reason Ning Xinyan gave for why he was so reluctant to dismantle the home surveillance. This day, a beautiful girl rang the Ning residence door. She'd come to apply for the position. You're Wei Xian? Homeward journey? That Wei Xian? The girl pointed to the young man's handsome face and called out. Homeward Journey was the art piece So Yun Shang sent into the oil painting award ceremony 3 years ago. It was dedicated to Wei Xian. The teenager laid on the woman's lap in a state of extreme exhaustion, and the woman gently rubbed his hair with one hand and covering his cheeks with the other. They were surrounded by blossoming China roses, lingering on the breeze. The scene was warm and bright, but behind the youth was an endless road of thorny undergrowth. The youth's legs were curled up, and the soles of his feet were blood-stained. It wasn't difficult to imagine how difficult the trek he experienced before he came to the woman's side. This was a surrealist painting, but it carried unaltered classicism. With a warm hue, it told a sad tale. The youth was lying there quietly, so serene and beautiful that all passerby were deeply attracted by him, wanting to explore his breath, to see if he was still alive. He was so young and tender. He should not have to bear everything alone. Everyone wanted to be the hands that embraced him. When the painting was exhibited, due to the many people who really reached out to test his breathing, in order to prevent damage to the painting, the organizers had no choice but to put a sign up on the wall. It read, "He's still alive." The artist's superb skill and sincere emotions gave the painting life and soul. The painting also won the highest prize of that year's oil painting award ceremony. Wei Xiyan became famous in one go, but Ning Xinyan suffered nightmares for several months. Although the organizers said he is still alive, only Ning Xinyan knew the woman embracing the youth was actually his mother. Longing to throw himself into his mother's arms was tantamount to longing to throw himself into death's embrace. This painting had a resolve to die. Ning Xinyan was frightened. Since then, he increased his control over the boy even more. If he disappeared from his field of vision for more than 3 minutes, he would be restless, his forehead soaked in cold sweat. As a result, Zhao Yun, who was often called to go find him, always silently cursed his boss's serious illness. At this moment, Ning Xinyan was staring at the screen, ashen-faced, watching the man and woman get along harmoniously. The cell phone by his ear creaked from his tight grip. "Can you bake cookies? My nephew loves them," Jin Sheng asked, looking at the female lead. Yes, this person was the belated female lead. "I can. Shall I bake a few for you and the child to try?" The girl's cheeks were slightly flushed, her eyes shining. Because of Homeward Journey, she became enchanted by Wei Xian 3 years ago. She never expected he would actually be her future employer. "Okay, the kitchen has everything. Just take anything you need." Zhou Yunsheng pointed to the cupboards. The girl hurriedly nodded and was about to put on an apron. When Zhao Yun speedily entered the room, he said in a low voice, "Mr. Wei, the boss just called. He said that he has already found a good nanny, so you don't need to worry about this matter. Continue with your painting. I'll send the young lady out." Saying this, he pulled the girl out of the Ning residence, allowing no room for rebuttal. Not long after, the Ning residence really got a new nanny. 65 years old, a face like a dry tangerine peel. Zhu Yunsheng looked her up and down and inwardly cursed. The damn pervert, but the corners of his mouth curved up.